They would be solved. So Russia would have never attacked. Israel would have never been attacked. The Ukraine situation is so horrible. The Israeli situation is so horrible, what's happened. And we're going to get them solved. We're going to get them solved very fast. I actually said, Ukraine, I know President Putin very well. I know Zelensky very well. I'm going to get him in. We're going to get it solved very quickly. Should have never happened. Would have never happened. Now you have all that death, far greater than people understand. The numbers are far, far greater than anybody would even think possible. You're going to find that out in the years to come. When they knock down these massive buildings in Ukraine, and then you see they announced 2 people were slightly wounded. No, many people were killed. Many people were killed. We're going to get it stopped. But it's so sad because it should have never started. People killed and a culture destroyed. You can never replace 1,000-year-old buildings with the most beautiful golden domes and churches and everything, just all rubble now. And it's so sad. Would have never, ever happened. And likewise, Israel would have never been attacked. It all comes from Iran, and we would have had to deal with Iran very quickly had the election where we, by the way, got, and I say we because it's all we got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country. But they say we lost by a whisker, okay? But regardless of that, we're going to do incredible things, and we're not going to let China do what they'd like to do. I get along great with him also. President Xi, he's a very strong leader. And we're going to get things solved. We're going to get the Ukraine war solved. We're going to get the Israeli situation solved. But if you think back to that, Iran was broke. I said to every country, anybody does business with Iran, buys oil from Iran, they were broke. We're not going to let you do business in the United States. And that's the way it is. They did very little business, almost sold no oil. Nobody wanted to do that. That's a big penalty. And what happened is they had no money to give to Hamas and to give to Hezbollah. And in fact, there were a lot of stories at the time. They had no money for terror. And for 4 years, we had no terror. We had the terror ban. We had the terror ban. They call it the Trump travel ban, but it was really the Trump terror ban. We don't want people in our country that are going to blow up our shopping centers. Thank you very much. And we want a country of law and order. So we're going to rebuild the capital of our country, Washington, D.C. We're going to scrub those beautiful marble columns and get the swastikas off them. And we're going to scrub them and get the graffiti off them. And we're going to clean the streets, and we're going to rebuild the streets. And we're not going to have rusted medians through the middle that are falling down into the roads where foreign dignitaries from all over the world come and they look. And we're not going to be riding on top of garbage like I did just a month ago, riding on top of garbage. We're going to rebuild our beautiful Washington, D.C., and we're going to take control of it, and we're going to make unbelievably harsh penalties for people that go around shooting. Last week, they shot 3 people. And every night something happens. It's so sad. And likewise, we're going to rebuild our cities, and we'll work with the Democrats to do it. I'd be glad to work with the people in New York. We're going to work with the people in Chicago and LA. We're going to rebuild our cities, and we're going to make them safe. And we're going to give our police officers immunity. So every time they do something, they don't get sued and stopped. We're going to end crime in our cities. In Iowa, you don't know what that means, but I'll tell you, this is a different place. You don't know about crime. You don't know about getting mugged and getting whacked and getting thrown into subways, and we're going to stop it. And we're going to come down very hard on criminals, and we're going to stop crime in America.
Israel, according to both U.S. and Israeli intelligence reports.
Yeah.
Have you spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yeah.
How should the United States respond? And the same question for you, Mr. Speaker.
I don't want to say who I spoke to, but for the president of our country to actually put out a warning that he thinks that we're going to be attacked or they're going to be attacked, that's pretty pathetic. They wouldn't be attacking Israel if I were president, that I can tell you, and they never did. They wouldn't be attacking. Iran was in no position to attack. They had no money. They were broke. But now they have $221 billion, and they have Iraq, who has $300 billion, and Iraq has become a subsidiary of Iran. With all that we've done, with all of the fighting, all of the death, look at what happened, how incompetent the whole thing is. But I don't want to say who I spoke to, but I think it's a very, very dangerous period. This is a very dangerous period of time in our nation, and a big reason that it's dangerous that we have a president that's grossly incompetent. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
You know, the pilot said it's too windy to land, sir. I said, that's okay. Land anyway. We have no choice. It's windy out here. It's windy, but it's beautiful. It's Pennsylvania. It's our place. I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful Commonwealth with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. That's what you are. With your help, we're going to win Pennsylvania. We're going to defeat crooked Joe Biden. We're going to make America great again. Before going any further, I want to say God bless the people of Israel. They're under attack right now. That's because we show great weakness. This would not happen. The weakness that we've shown is unbelievable, and it would not have happened if we were in office. You know that. They know that. Everybody knows that. But America prays for Israel, and we send our absolute support to everyone in harm's way. This is an attack that would not have happened. I mean, to think about what we have to go through and the things we put up with the border, with no energy independence, with all electric cars. Would everybody like to buy an electric car? But we will return the world to peace through strength, and it'll happen very quickly. We will revive American strength abroad, and we will restore American strength at home. We were respected 4 years ago all over the world. Today, we are considered a joke. It's not going to be for long. Believe me, it's not going to be for long. We will quickly rebuild the greatest economy in the history of the world like we had it just 4 years ago. It was just announced that inflation is once again raging. It's close to 4% again. Here we go.
Mr. Trump, what do you think of Judge Cannon's order? Are you happy to vote her?
Thank you very much. What Biden is doing with respect to Israel is disgraceful. If any Jewish person voted for Joe Biden, they should be ashamed of themselves. He's totally abandoned Israel, and nobody can believe it. I guess he feels good about it because he did it as a political decision. You have to do the right decision, not the political decision. But he did a very bad thing. I just want to let you know that we've just filed a major motion in the appellate division concerning the absolutely unconstitutional gag order, where I'm essentially not allowed to talk to you about anything meaningful that's going on in the case, and many good things are going on with the case. It shouldn't have been filed. They had this morning the top legal scholars in the country. This is a Frankenstein case. They took a dead misdemeanor, they attached it to a dead alleged federal felony and zapped it back into life. So many of us are just amazed to watch this actually walk into court, because it's not a recognizable crime that any of us have seen. That's Jonathan Turley. I've been doing this for 60 years, and I don't understand what crime he's been charged with. Nobody understands this. I just don't get the crime. There's no evidence of any crime whatsoever. This is a sham. That's Alan Dershowitz. And these are people that they speak their minds. They're not for me.
there for justice. This is another one. This is without precedent in American history. Only with the desperation of President Joe Biden and his fanatic left-wing enforcers did it become possible to think about arresting and jailing their major political opponent. This case must be taken out of Judge Merchan's hands because he's totally conflicted. Judge Merchan is totally conflicted, like probably no judge has ever been conflicted before. Here's another one, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. His prosecution of former President Donald Trump violates both the federal and state constitutions. This is a prosecutor making it up as he goes along. Due process worthy of the names does not tolerate that. So these are statements. This is Andrew McCarthy made that statement. Highly respected. A judge is allowing wide scope of information that has absolutely nothing to do with the case. That's Rebecca Rose Woodland, Fox News. Today we have Rick Scott here, Senator Rick Scott. We have other politicians here. We have people, many people in support. The outside of this building is closed down like Fort Knox. Nobody has ever seen. We have so many police down here, New York's finest, and they are New York's finest. They're just told what to do, but they don't have them at Columbia. They don't have them at NYU or any other places. This is like an armed camp down here, and you have nothing to worry about. Believe me, your problem is from the left. It's not from the right. Big problem from the left. It's from within our country. That's a bigger, in my opinion, a bigger danger than China or Russia. You have it from the outside and you have it from within. From within is a bigger danger to our country, and it's from the left, not from the right. But Rick Scott's here, and he said you can't go after political persecutions. This is a shame. This should not be happening in our country. And Senator Ted Cruz put out a very strong statement about attacking Donald Trump and the American voter. It's an attack on both. This is purely and simply election interference. There is no case. So that's the way it is, but here we sit after 2.5 weeks, and I think you'll see some very revealing things today, and I want to thank my lawyers. They've done a very good job, but I'd rather thank them after it's over as opposed to now, because we don't want them to get carried away. There's no case. Should have never been brought. Alvin Bragg didn't want to bring it. Cy Vance didn't want to bring it, and he didn't. He left. He didn't bring it. Everybody's looked at it. Southern District didn't bring it. Federal elections didn't bring it. It's also a federal case, not a state case, which they're not allowed to do, but these are minor details. So I just want to thank you for being here, and we'll see you later in the afternoon. Thank you very much.
What do you think of the Stormy Daniels testimony?
How does the law feel about the testimony?
Are you politicizing this trial?
Crooked Joe Biden would say constantly that he ran because of Charlottesville. We know that's not true. And in any case, he's done a really terrible job, because Charlottesville is like a peanut compared to the riots and anti-Israel protests that are happening all over our country. Right now, it's a disaster. There's never been a time like it in the United States of America, and it's Crooked's fault, because he sends the wrong message every single time. And that includes what happened with Russia and Ukraine. That includes October 7th. And that certainly includes a bad message on inflation, where he has launched inflation at levels never seen before. The fact is that Crooked Joe hates Israel, and he hates the Jewish people. There's no question about that. And if Jewish people are going to vote for Joe Biden, they have to have their head examined. He's a disaster for Israel. The problem is that he hates the Palestinians also, and even more so, and he just doesn't know what to do. He's a confused man. He can't put two sentences together. He doesn't have a clue. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know he's alive, and he's our president. We have to end it. November 5th, we're going to end it. Thank you very much. God be with you.
Crooked Joe has not just set our economy on fire. He has truly set the world on fire. If you want to know how a weak and pathetic president really is, I mean, the things they do, just think about this. This week he announced that he will withhold shipping weapons to Israel as they fight to eradicate Hamas terrorists in Gaza. No, it was shocking to hear it. Even while there are still American hostages being held by Hamas. And
they're saying, oh, October 7th never happened. You know, they say that. And Biden has fallen for it. Crooked Joe's action is one of the worst betrayals of an American ally in the history of our country. I support Israel's right to win its war on terror. Is that okay? I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad politically. I don't care. You got to do what's right. It was a terrible attack. October 7th was a terrible attack. I don't know. It's probably bad politically, but I don't care. You have to do the right thing. There would have been no war in Gaza with me in the White House. There would not have even been a chance. You know, Iran was broke when I was president. I said, if you buy oil, anybody buys oil from Iran, they can't do business with the United States. They were totally broke. Now they have $250 billion. They made it all in 3.5 years. When I was president, we had peace in the Middle East like never before, and I got the Abraham Accords done when nobody thought it was possible. And they've done nothing with them. We had 4 countries done. We would have had them all. Every country would have been signed up, in my opinion, including Iran, because they wanted to make a deal so badly. Now they don't have to because they're a rich country. Crooked Joe surrendered to the terrorists just like he surrendered to the Taliban. And so I took hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes and fees from China and other countries also, not just China. Everyone rips us, all of them. The European Union is brutal. They all are brutal because they were dealing with people that didn't care. They had no business bent. They were politicians. They didn't want to rock the boat. European Union treats us very badly. They learned. They learned. We did a lot of things with them. Macron of France, good guy, is a friend of mine, but he loves France. And he was going to put a tax on all American business, a very substantial tax, 25% on American businesses in France. And my people went. I gave it to Steve Mnuchin. I gave it to others. I said, go in and tell him you can't do that stuff. Don't do it. And they came back and they were unable to make a deal. I said, I'll give you another couple of days. Just tell him I don't want it. He came back. They said, can't make a deal. I called up Macron of France, the head. Nice guy, loves France, you know, likes France. He's a friend of mine. But I said, Emmanuel, hi, Emmanuel. How are you, Emmanuel? Oh, Donald, I love you so much. You're doing such a good job. I said, thank you very much. I agree. But let me just tell you, Emmanuel, you're putting a big tax on American companies doing business in France. You can't do it. Oh, it's too late. Oh, I wish you would have called me early. It's too late, darling. I cannot do it. I said, yeah, you're going to do something about it. You got to do it. Are you going to do it? I won't be able to. I said, let me just tell you something, Emmanuel. Are you ready? Every bottle of wine and champagne that comes into the United States, this was a Friday evening, starting on Monday morning, is going to be taxed and tariffed at 100%. Every single bottle of wine and champagne from France will be taxed at 100%. No, you cannot do that. I said, I can do it. It's done. I have an order right in front of me. I'm signing it. You have 10 minutes. Call me back. He calls me back in about 3 minutes. Donald, we are pleased to inform you that we were able to end that horrible tax that I won. You know how many deals I made like that? I made more deals like that. I made a lot of deals with telephones. You know, one thing I don't know, I mean, isn't it better when we don't read these stupid teleprompters all day long? You know? Biden can't get up with the teleprompter. We had a beauty we went to Ohio, and we had 45-mile-an-hour winds. The teleprompters were like a sailboat. You ever try and read something just moving like 4 or 5? And then they blew off the stage. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with you for an hour and a half, and I don't have any teleprompter. And we winged it. And, you know, the gentleman that I was there for, Bernie Moreno, ended up winning the nomination by a lot. And he's going to be the next guy, I hope, the next senator from the great state of Ohio, which we won by a lot. But sometimes those are our favorite speeches. And I only do this when I feel really comfortable with the crowd. And do I feel comfortable with you? I love you people. We are the same. We are the same. We are the same. But so I talked about France, but I do that with a lot. I did that with so many. I did it with Italy, where they were going to do something. They were charging us a lot. And I said, if you do that, we're going to take away your visa permits. And they immediately changed. And other people, I send people that are very smart in to do the deal. And they come back, sir, they will not do it. I said, they'll do it. You got to ask them properly. But it's just, and they're very smart people, but they seem not to get the job done oftentimes. China
is building massive automobile plants. I'm sure you're going to be thrilled to hear this one. A friend of mine builds automobile plants. This guy, I don't want to insult him, this guy can't walk across the street, but he can throw up an automobile plant better than anybody in the world. I said, I want to see one of the plants. He said, well, you'll have to go to Mexico. I said, why? He said, the big ones are being built in Mexico. I said, what about the United States? No, the big ones are being built in Mexico. Biden has taken so much incentive away, and they're moving into Mexico. And what's happening is the really big ones are being built by China in Mexico to make cars in Mexico by China to sell into the United States to come across the border with no tax. I said, wait a minute, you mean the big automobile plants under construction now are being built in Mexico? That's right. Now, he didn't care. He builds them whether it's here. He doesn't care. He just, he's a guy who builds plants. He's the biggest in the world. I said, so they're being built in Mexico, and they're owned by China, and China's running them, right? Yeah. And they're doing that to avoid tax and labor, more expensive labor. And they're going to sell all those cars into the United States. Yeah, they're built so that he makes the cars in Mexico, China, and they sell them in here. I said, that won't happen. I said, I will put a 200% tax on every car that comes in from those plants, and they're not going to do that because they'll destroy our automobile business. And Biden doesn't want to get involved, and those aren't electric vehicles necessarily. Those are gas-powered vehicles, which he's not doing anything about. Do you notice he's trying to save the electrical vehicle, but not the gas-powered, which is the vehicle that everybody wants. So you don't have to worry about those plants if I'm elected. If I'm not elected, those plants are going to close up every automobile job in America. You won't be making one automobile in the United States of America. And the United Auto Workers, who, I'm leading in Michigan by a lot, because they're run by an incompetent man that endorsed crooked Joe Biden. And the first thing he does is sign this electric vehicle, this mandate, that where they're going to go crazy. They're going crazy with the electric car, costing us a fortune. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing a car that nobody wants and nobody's ever going to buy. And it's just a shame. You see it. It's so stupid. And it's the same thing with foreign policy. Look at what he's doing with Israel. Look at what he's doing. This man is destroying our country. He's destroying our allies. And you know what? I was tough on our allies, too, because our allies always took advantage of us. But once I got them straightened out, it was fine. I mean, we had NATO, and they weren't paying their bills. And they said, well, what are you going to do? He said, Obama came in, and he'd make a speech, and he'd leave. Bush would come in, he'd make a speech, and he'd leave. Trump came in, he made a speech, and he went back, he said, you guys aren't paying your bills. And when I went back the second time, I couldn't do it the first time. I was in office for about two hours. It's hard to go 2 hours. Like I think it was my second meeting was NATO. And it's hard to go immediately. But I said, I'll be back in about 6 months. And when I came back, I said, you're not paying your bills. And they looked at me, they said, well, you mean to tell me, because I said, you got to pay your bills, or we're not going to protect you with NATO. And the press, the fake news went crazy. And you're talking about, hey, they screw us on trade, and then on top of that, we take care of their military. So I said, no, you have to pay your bills. And one of the presidents from one of the countries, 28 countries at the time, 28 countries, only 7 of them were paid up. The rest of them didn't pay. And the United States was paying much more than they should have, like by about 10 times. We were carrying NATO. So we get screwed on trade, and we carry NATO. And I said, if you don't do this, we got problems. And one of them stood up and said, sir, do you mean to tell me that if I'm attacked in this very big country, if I'm attacked as a country by Russia, you will not defend me? I said, are you delinquent? He said, well, let's say I was. I said, if you're delinquent, I would not protect you. And you know what happened? And the press killed me because they said, oh, you've treated us so terribly. They respect you more. They like me more than they like other people. They understand. They can't believe they got away with it. For years and years, they got away with it. South Korea, we're paying for their military. We have 42,000 soldiers there. They pay us like nothing. I changed that. But now Biden, I understand, wants to break it. He thought I was too rough, and they're paying too much. They make a fortune. They took our shipping industry. They took our computer industry. They took so many different industries.
and they're making a lot of money. They can pay for their military. And these are the things I was doing as president. Are you enjoying this? Let's get on to another subject. But Europe is being flooded with Chinese cars, and they don't know what to do. Right now, you know, China wants to take over the cars all over the world. They just want to make the cars for everybody, right? That's wonderful. But we'd like to keep our jobs, if you don't mind. But I'm not going to allow it to happen in our car and truck industry. We're going to make sure that our industry grows. It's going to grow like a weed. By the end of my 4th year, our car and truck industry will be triple the size of what it is now, and jobs will be flourishing. We will be setting records in auto jobs and truck jobs. Under Biden, it will all be gone. You will not have any car maker. That's a big, important industry, too. You can't lose it. You're going to lose it. They're going to lose it. I see what's happening already, and I think that's why I'm up, because the United Auto Workers and Auto Workers General are very smart people, and they see what's happening. And I'm up in Michigan, I believe, because of it. And I'm way up in South Carolina. In fact, we had a little skirmish with the governor, and did we win by 40 points or 50 points? And that's fine. That's fine. We get along with everybody. Thought possible. Together, we stood up to the communists, Marxists, and fascists to defend religious liberty like no other president has ever done. And I have the wounds all over my body. If I took this shirt off, you'd see a beautiful, beautiful person. But you'd see wounds all over me. I've taken a lot of wounds, I can tell you. More than I suspect any president ever. You know, in history, and I've read, I love this stuff, but in history, they say Andrew Jackson was treated the worst, President Andrew. He was a great general and a very good president. And Abraham Lincoln was second worst. Now, he had a civil war, so, you know, you sort of think that was understood. And now they're rewriting the books. Trump was treated the worst, Andrew Jackson second, and Abraham Lincoln third. But I definitely took top spot. I took top spot. And I'm honored to do it. And here we are looking for more. How about that? I could right now be home. I wouldn't be in court. I wouldn't be in courts all over the land. All started by crooked Joe Biden and his group of thugs. We restored the conscience rights and all of the things that we've done for doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups. Like the Little Sisters of the Poor, we came to their defense. I stopped the IRS from using the Johnson Amendment to interfere with pastors' freedom of speech, and all religious leaders, pastors, not only pastors. And Joe Biden took it right away, and I will give it right back. We're going to give it right back. You know, a long time ago, I learned about the Johnson Amendment a long time ago. They've basically taken away your rights. You're not allowed, if you're a minister, a pastor, or other religious leader or rabbi, if you want to say things that are political, they take away your tax exemptions and they really destroy you. And I put that back, and now they've put it back. It's like a yo-yo. I'm going to put it back immediately. First day, I'm giving that back because we want to hear from our ministers, our pastors, and our rabbis, and others, by the way. I issued guidance making clear that the right to freedom of worship does not end at the door to a public school. I was the first to, and I'm the only president, I think, to convene a meeting at the United Nations to end religious persecution worldwide. The only time it's ever been done. Because you know what? Presidents, they get elected, and then they don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved, like what I did for Israel as an example, right, with Jerusalem. Every president for many, many presidents said, we're going to do that capital. Going to make Jerusalem the capital. They're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And nobody did it. And I understood why, because once I got there, I had more pressure put on me from other countries. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. I did it. I did something what many presidents, I don't know the number, but going back a long time, they campaigned on it. They did it. I campaigned on it, and I did it. I just didn't take, thank you very much, that's very nice. You know, I didn't take calls for about 4 days. I set up the meeting on a Monday, and I didn't take calls. I was away, quote, over the weekend. And he'll call you back on Tuesday. Oh, kings, queens, everybody. He'll call you back on Tuesday. And we had a press conference on Monday, and I announced Jerusalem. I announced that we're going to move the embassy, and Jerusalem becomes the capital. Something. And by the way, that's a small one compared to what I did. I got rid of the Iran nuclear deal. Unfortunately, Biden. Yeah, but Biden did nothing with it. And Golan Heights and the Abraham Accords. What I did for Israel, and interestingly, this group is so unbelievably pro-Israel. It's amazing, actually, and I tell you that because in many ways you give it more support than anybody. You give more support to Israel than anybody, so a lot of people really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I can use that. I can use that love. Thank you. Who is the woman? She sounded so nice. Stand up, please. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's very nice. And you have a beautiful voice, too. Thank you. We cannot let this, I have to say, once great country, but will soon be a great country again. But right now, we don't feel like this is a great country. We're a laughingstock all over the world. But we can't let our country fail. As everyone here understands, the radical left ideology Kamala supports is really militantly hostile toward Americans of faith. And you saw that during the pandemic where people couldn't get together. Even when they wanted to get together with big spaces outside, they were ravaged. As a senator, she viciously attacked highly qualified judicial nominees simply because they were members of the Knights of Columbus, suggesting that their Catholic faith disqualified them from serving on the federal bench. And I'll tell you something. I don't know, we have a lot of Catholics in here. Probably not too many. How many Catholics do we have? Whoa, it's a lot. I don't know how a Catholic can vote for the Democrats because they're after the Catholics. Almost as much as they're after me. I would say I top you, I'm proud to admit. But they're really after the Catholics. And, you know, I met today with Bibi Netanyahu, and I will tell you, I asked him a question, and he said he's getting asked that question a lot. I said, how can a Jewish person or a person that loves Israel vote, think of this, vote for these parties? I mean, how can they vote Democrat? How can they vote for these horrible people that want to destroy? But I asked him, how do they vote for Democrats? Everything is negative. Everything, they want to stay in the way. They don't want to have victory. They want to stop you from having victory. They want to put you in jail. They want to persecute you. How does a Jewish person vote for a Democrat? And traditionally, they have. No, traditionally, they have. And we came to the conclusion it's mostly habit. Because they have for 50 years. I mean, they have. That's what they've done. But how does a Jewish person vote for a Democrat? How does a Catholic person vote for a Democrat? With what they're doing to Catholics, I just don't get it. Somebody doesn't like Catholics in that administration, and I don't even know who it is. I don't think it's Biden because I don't think he has any idea what the hell he's doing. I don't think he has any ideas on any subject. Kamala Harris supports California's outrageous new law trampling on parental rights and allowing minors to change their gender without parental notification or consent. Can you imagine? She's in favor of that, by the way. Or she was. She's probably losing. You know, they're losing as much as they can. But remember, a politician always goes back to where they started. Harris wants to forcibly compel doctors and nurses against their will to give chemical castration drugs to young children. You know that, right? She totally supports that. And she supports the Biden-Harris Title IX policy of forcing every public school in America to let men into women's and girls' locker rooms. Can you imagine? It's like, what are we doing? What? You know, the whole world is laughing at us. You do know that, right? We've gone wacko. As president, I will protect the safety and well-being of America's children. I will defend the values of the American family. And above all, I will restore common sense to Washington, D.C., because Republicans, and I said this for the last year, and I think it's so true, we're conservative and all of that stuff. But you know what? We're the party of common sense. Common sense. We want borders. We want security. We want safety. We want good education. We'd like low interest rates. We'd like to be able to buy a house. We want safety, though. We want safety. We want strength. We want wisdom. We don't want to have an electric car where everybody has an electric car that doesn't go far, is made in China, costs too much. And by the way, and I want to thank Elon Musk for endorsing me, by the way, I have to tell you.
Hello, Bitcoiners. Thank you very much. Hello. It's good to be with you. It's good to be with you. So, Secret Service just told me, sir, would like a little more time. I said, you take all the time you want. You can take 2 hours, 3 hours, the hell with the people that have been waiting out here. But I'm sure they don't mind either. But it is a great honor, and a lot of things are happening in the world. We just heard, you probably heard, that Israel was just attacked, very severely attacked. And Hezbollah looks like. And this is things that won't happen. I mean, you just can't. They have to respect us. They have to respect. They cannot do this. They cannot do this. What they did just now with that attack is terrible. Just happened. And so to all, God bless everybody. This is so serious. They have to respect our country. This would never have happened with us, and we just cannot let it continue. So we just wish them all a lot of luck. This happened to us as I'm walking on the stage. You probably, most of you have heard about it, but it just, it's a terrible thing. But I'm thrilled to be here in Nashville to become the first American president ever to address a Bitcoin event anywhere in the world.
And with the historic Abraham Accords, as you know, we created peace in the Middle East. Unfortunately, they didn't add any countries to it, but we will. By contrast, Kamala Harris stabbed Israel in the back in its great hour of need. 2 days ago, she refused to attend the speech in Congress of the Prime Minister of Israel. She said, oh, I can't make it. There was just a small group of people, but they couldn't make it because that's her original thought. That's where she comes from. She doesn't like Jewish people. She doesn't like Israel. That's the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be. She's not going to change. Together with Joe Biden, she gave billions and billions of dollars to Iran and Hamas to fund their campaigns of terror. She gave them billions of dollars. They were broke. Remember, when I left, they were broke. There were stories that Hamas is out of business, Hezbollah is out of business. They were broke. October 7th would have never happened if I were president. The attack on Ukraine by Russia would have never happened. I spoke to President Putin often about it. It was the apple of his eye. He would have never done it. Wouldn't have done it. I said, you'll never do it. He would have never done it. It was only after I left that armies started aligning the border with Ukraine, armies. And I said, oh, he's just negotiating. He'll never do it, but he did it. He did it because we had a weak president. He did it also because our move out of Afghanistan was so incompetently done. And I think when he saw the way we did that, he said, wow, this is a paper tiger that we're dealing with. But they weren't a paper tiger with me. We defeated ISIS in 4 weeks instead of 5 years. It was supposed to take 5 years, 4 weeks. Within days of the heinous October 7th attack on Israel, Kamala Harris praised the anti-Israel protesters. You saw that, right? She praised them. She betrayed America's ally and sided with the radical fringe of her party, only for political gain, maybe for personal gain, I don't know. And this week, many of those Kamala Harris supporters burned American flags in the heart of our nation's capital and desecrated our monuments. Did you see? They sprayed very powerful spray paint into limestone. Magnificent, the lions, the bells, you saw it. And you know, when that gets into limestone, you never really get it out. You'll see it in 100 years from now. They desecrated. And by the way, January 6th, well, what's happening to these people that have done serious damage? Have they been arrested? Are they in jail now, like the January 6th hostages? And when are they letting them out? You know, we had a great Supreme Court ruling 4 weeks ago that really should let most of them out. When are they coming out? They're still there. When are they coming out? Unlike liberal Kamala, I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror. You have to support that. Got to win. Got to finish it off. And instead of pandering to the jihad sympathizers and America-hating radicals, we will deport them. We will deport them very quickly. We have no choice. And they understand that. They understand that. I have many friends in the Middle East, many great friends in the Middle East. They understand it. In my next term, I will once again appoint rock-solid conservative judges who will protect religious liberty and not let Marxist lunatics rewrite our Constitution. In my first 4 years, we will totally transform the federal bench, appointing remember this, I appointed nearly 300 judges to defend the law and the Constitution as written. I defended this law, this Constitution. Then they say, oh, he is not for democracy. I took a bullet for democracy. He didn't. In my first term, I defended, and like nobody, Christians against hate and bigotry. Nobody did what I did, and Marxist aggression. No president has ever done what I've done for Christians before. I restored religious liberty for doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups like the beautiful Little Sisters of the Poor. We defended them very strongly. I stopped the IRS from using the Johnson Amendment. That's after Lyndon Johnson, who had a problem with a certain pastor in Houston. Didn't like him, so he passed an amendment that was a disaster. To interfere with pastors' freedom of speech, he wouldn't let pastors even discuss anything having to do with politics. And if they did do that, they'd take away their tax-exempt status. So pastors were afraid because they need the tax-exempt status in order to do what they have to do. And we want to listen to our pastors. We don't want them to be silenced because these pastors are incredible people. That's right. I listen to you. Sometimes I don't listen well enough, though, I will say. You know, Franklin Graham, you probably heard me say this. I said it a couple of times. But he's a great guy and always been a supporter of mine. He was never a supporter of people politically. Probably he can't be. But he was always a supporter, and openly. But he wrote me a letter a few weeks ago. He said, President Trump, I love listening to your stories. You're a great storyteller. That was very nice. He said, but please, if it's possible, it'll be even better. Don't use foul language. He told me, please, do away with foul language. If you don't use foul language, it will be even better. And I thought about it, and I tried it for a couple of nights, actually. Actually, it didn't work out so well. It was, you know, when I get to the punchline, I'm ready to use that one word, just one, Franklin, one word. And then I use a politically correct word, and the whole thing just falls flat. But I try. I'm trying, Franklin, I'm telling you. No, he's a good man. He's a good man. I issued guidance making clear that the right to freedom of worship does not end at the door of a public school. We know that. I was the first and only president to convene a meeting at the United Nations to end religious persecution worldwide. That's the first president to do it. They didn't want to get into it. All of these very religious presidents that you've had, you know, religious in quotes, they said, no, we'll pass on that. But I went and I did it, and I was proud to do it. For 4 years, I stood proudly with our friend and ally, the State of Israel. And for them and us, I withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. We left Iran weak, broke, and unable to fund terror. And we would have had a deal if the election weren't rigged and stolen. We would have had a deal within the first week after the election. Instead, Iran is now a very wealthy country. They were a poor country. I said, nobody can buy from them. If you buy from them, you can't do business with the U.S. And China didn't buy, and nobody bought, and they didn't have the money to give to Hamas and Hezbollah. They had no money. They were broke. A Democrat congressman was on a show called Deface the Nation. Do you know? Ladies and gentlemen, it's Deface the Nation. You know, they spend millions of dollars with people to try and build up their name, and then Trump comes up, makes a speech. Look at all the television. Trump comes up, makes a speech, and you go Deface the Nation. So much for that PR campaign. But it's true. It is a defacing of the nation in many cases. The others are no different. ABC, NBC, CBS, they're all bad. But, you know, we have to bring back an honest press. If we don't bring back honesty in our press, this whole thing is not going to work. But I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. It was a big deal. And got it built for $2 billion under budget. Took an old building and reconverted it for peanuts using Jerusalem stone. A friend of mine said, oh, I love Jerusalem stone. He's in New York. Big, rich guy. Every time I walk into his office, do you know what this is? I know it's Jerusalem stone. You tell me every time, oh, comes from Jerusalem. So now I'm building. I not only wanted to get it going, but I want to build it because I know I can get it built fast. And they had a building already. They were going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to buy a site in Jerusalem. I said, wait a minute, don't we have something? We checked. Yeah, we always do, because we were there a long time ago. We were there sort of first, always by the post office like I did in Washington. If you get a post office, it's always the first building that they put in years ago. It's always the best location. So I said, do we have anything? Yeah. I said, hey, listen to the people. We're going to spend $2 billion on building an embassy. I said, how much do you think we can do it for? We think we can do it for $350,000. So this, really, we're going to take an old building and reconvert it. I said, 300. It's the only time I ever said this. I said, you know, honestly, it's too low. It sounds too cheap. I've never done that before. Usually I say, okay, let's make it 300, right? Let's make it 250. But I said, I think it's too cheap. It sounds terrible. Do it for under 500,000. Yes, sir. I said, any chance we can use Jerusalem stone? A friend of mine says it's very expensive. He goes, absolutely, sir. It's all over the place. We're in Jerusalem. So we built the whole thing out of Jerusalem stone. Can you believe it? And got it done for nothing. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful embassy. And that was the capital of Israel. Every president for decades and decades promised that they were going to do that. Capital of Israel, Jerusalem. But I even got the building built. And we got it built. We had a beautiful opening. I went. It was a beautiful opening. And I had a young lady named Ivanka there. We had our great first lady there. We had a lot of my children, a lot of my friends. It was a beautiful opening. Remember, it was always going to be a disaster if you do that. And every president was going to do it. They got to the office. They go into the White House. All of a sudden, they get hit by every side. They never did it. They never could get it off. I understand it. There was tremendous pressure not to do it. But I got it done. I got the building built, and it was a great thing. We opened it, and there were no problems, you know. People said there were going to be big problems. There would be bloodshed all over the Middle East. It never happened. It never happened. And we had it recognized, Jerusalem, as the capital of Israel. It was a great thing. It was a great day, actually. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. I never even said I was going to do it. I mean, the fact is, I've done more for Israel by far than any other president. Not even close.
The surge of chaos and bigotry and violence the Jewish community is witnessing today is the direct result of weakness, radicalism, and cowardice of the Harris-Biden administration. Kamala Harris restored funding to the Palestinian Authority, as you know. She was the one that led it, and the UN Relief and Works Agency, which both funnel money directly to Hamas. She's the one that led it.
and then you vote for her. I don't you got to talk to your friends, talk to your people. Ziggy, please. No, do you understand? Ziggy understands. She can't even believe it. But these are the people that give her money, and she's giving money to Hamas, Hezbollah, all of them. She's the one that really pushed for it. She supported removing the Houthis from the list of terrorist organizations, and she got that list taken out. She's the one that really pushed it hard. And remember, 5 or 6 weeks ago, everyone thought she was a nothing. Now all of a sudden, because she was the one, they were politically correct. You know, they did that only because they want to be politically correct, so nobody went and challenged her. All of a sudden, it's like she's the greatest ever. She's Margaret Thatcher, liberal version, right? Can you believe it? She was nothing 5 weeks ago. She was the worst vice president ever. She was the worst border czar in history. Now she says, I wasn't the border czar, but she was in charge of the border. She did a horrible job. But a group whose motto includes the words, death to America, death to Israel, and a curse on all Jews. That's what their motto is. Most egregiously of all, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, who doesn't know he's alive, by the way, delivered over $100 billion in sanction relief to Iran. They gave them a lot of money. They gave them $6 billion to a hostage. $6 billion. $6 billion. And it's unbelievable, the amount of money they give for the... You know, when you do that, they're just going to keep kidnapping people, whether it's Russia or them or anybody else. Look what happened in Russia. We got a basketball player. They got the greatest reign of terror. This is the man, the Prince of Death, right? They call him the Prince of Death, Ziggy, right? He's the greatest arms dealer in history, they say. This is what we got. They got him back. I wonder what they're doing with him. Unsurprisingly, Iran is now trying to tilt the election in Kamala's favor very strongly. They're openly fighting for it. Kamala Harris is the candidate of the forces who want to destroy Western civilization, but most particularly Israel and Jewish people. And I'm the candidate of those who want to defend Western civilization, defend Israel, and defend the United States of America. Kamala, I really don't call her Harris because nobody knows who Harris is. You say to people, Harris, who the hell is Harris? Isn't it a weird deal? Nobody knows. Even me, I'm saying Harris. I'm saying, who is that? So I call her Kamala because at least people know who she is. But Kamala and Biden's weakness and indulgence of Israel's enemies directly enabled the monstrous October 7th attack on Israel. Would have never happened. They knew nothing was going to happen to them with Biden. The deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust by far. Hamas slaughtered whole families, raped women, and burned Jewish civilizations alive and screaming. And we got to see the same video. It's incredible. And, you know, they actually deny it even took place. You have people that deny it ever took place. We do know that, right? They deny the Holocaust. But now you have a modern version denying that October 7th. I've seen it. They say it never took place. A lot of these protesters say, I don't know if they believe it, but they've been brainwashed or something. They deny it ever took place. A lot of people say that, which is pretty amazing, actually. This evil atrocity would never have happened if I was president. Remember that. It never would have happened, and it didn't happen. There was never a threat of it. Nobody ever even thought about it. With us, there was zero chance of such an attack, yet almost before the blood of the October 7th victims was dry, and even as innocent civilians remained hostage in the hands of the terrorists, and they are rough terrorists too, rough. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden began to betray Israel in an effort to appease the Hamas caucus in the radical Democrat Party. From the start, Harris has worked to tie Israel's hands behind its back, demanding an immediate ceasefire, always demanding ceasefire. It's like incredible, like they never saw what happened. That would only give Hamas time to regroup and launch a new October 7th style attack, whether it's in a year or 2 years or 5 months or 10 years, on innocent women and children. And the hostages are largely dead. I've been saying it for a long while. If you've been watching over the last few days, Hamas is really being difficult to negotiate with. And the reason is they're dead. Not all, but almost all, a lot. And I watched the way they grabbed that one young girl by the hair and dragged her in, the way they treated her. They're not keeping people around for now 3 years. They're not going to be taking care of them for 3 years, what they've done. And they're probably saying to themselves, we blew it, because everybody wants them to negotiate. They're willing to give them anything. All they do is they want their hostages back, right? They want their hostages back, and Hamas keeps saying, oh, the hostages are gone. They're probably saying to themselves, why did we kill everybody? But I think you're going to have very few people left. You're going to have a lot of them. A lot of people that they think are alive are not going to be alive. These are very savage people. Just last week, Kamala even said she would consider imposing a full arms embargo against Israel, one of the closest allies in the world of the United States. This is unthinkable. She said that. She wanted to impose an arms embargo on them like they did nothing wrong. It's not believable. Under no circumstances should a radical extremist who flirts with an embargo against Israel, a major embargo too, just a complete embargo, Israel to get nothing, ever become commander-in-chief of the U.S. military. You know, once the enemy sees if she was ever in there, they will take advantage of Israel beyond. The biggest strength that Israel has is they know that, like with me or somebody else perhaps, but fewer and fewer people, but they know with me that they have total protection. They will not know that if this other one gets in. They know that, they almost know certainly that they will have no protection, and that it will almost considered a benchmark in the people that she's dealing with. This is a radical left lunatic that we have running for office, and I'm trying to brand her as such, because if I don't, you know, they get a lot of support. They get a lot of money coming in from lots of bad places. So we have to win the election. When I'm back in the Oval Office, I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror. They have to have a right to win the war. Thank you.
Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population, because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president. Everybody, I figured you would listen to the whole song, but let's get down to business, right? Let's get down to business. And I want to thank Miriam. This is a great woman, a really great woman who loves Israel, loves the Jewish people. And she's really a special person, so I very much appreciate that she was here to introduce.
Thanks also to the Israeli-American Council and CEO, my former special envoy to combat anti-Semitism, who did a phenomenal job. Where is Mr. Carr? He's around here someplace. Where is he? Great job. Great job. Thank you very much, Eva. Co-chairs Avi Almozleno and Tal Schuster. Thank you. We have the honor of having a very powerful man with us right now. He's the Speaker of the House, and he's really doing a good job. Mike Johnson. Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Now, one of the very top people in Congress. She's like a rocket ship. She's going up so fast. She totally destroyed the president of Harvard, you saw, with the big glasses, those big glasses. She asked her a simple question, and that was the end. She didn't get a very good answer. Actually, sounded a little bit like Kamala. But a really special person doing a phenomenal job in Congress, Elise Stefanik. That's a pretty good hand. They jumped up. What was that all about, Elise? That's pretty impressive. Ambassador Michael Herzog. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A friend of mine, a great lawyer, and his beautiful wife is with him, Alan Dershowitz. That was very, very nice. Thank you, Alan. And many other very distinguished guests. I have so many that I can't call because we don't have enough time. We're on television, we're all over the place, and I'm supposed to be calling out names that nobody ever heard of, so we won't do that. But please know that we love you all, including congressmen and senators that are here. We have a lot of them. Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we begin, I just want to mention some polls that just came out. They just came out. Remember in the old days, I used to call the polls because the fake news would never do it. I said, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Highly respected Rasmussen poll, one of the most respected polls. According to the Rasmussen, just out a little while ago, we're leading by 8 points, 52 to 44. 8 points, it's good. And they were that's national, and they were very accurate the last time, so a lot of respect for Rasmussen. And they also have us up 11 with independents. That's pretty good. The Emerson poll came out, another good one, highly respected. We're up in Arizona, we're up in Wisconsin, we're up in Pennsylvania, 3 states say that. Oh, I don't believe this, I don't believe it. Even the New York Times has us way up in the Midwest. Can you believe that? Oh, that was painful for them to say. We're 9 up in the Midwest, that's very good. And the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has us 3 up in Georgia, that's good, that's good. And CNN, can you believe this, has us? They did Arizona, 5 up in Arizona, so we're doing well. Daily Express, we're 5 up nationally, in the battleground states. So 47 days from now, we're going to defeat Kamala Harris. We're going to take back our country, and we're going to, quite simply, make America great again, right? We're gathered tonight to talk about the sacred bond between the United States and Israel, and it's a bond that's in serious trouble. There's never been anything like it. I believe that we are closer to World War III than at any time in the history of this country since the Second World War. There's never been anything like this period of time that we're going through, and we have leaders that are grossly incompetent. They have no idea what's happening. In less than 3 weeks, we will mark the 1-year anniversary of the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists slaughtered more than 1,200 Israelis, including men, women, children, and even little beautiful babies. They tortured, wounded, kidnapped, and horribly maimed thousands more. What a horrible time. Unthinkable. Could not have happened if I was president. Would not have happened. You know that. Iran had no money.
There was no money for terror. 28 terror organizations, including Hezbollah and Hamas, they had no money. There were lots of stories about it. We had no terrorism during the Trump administration. Remember that? Tonight we honor the memory of all who lost their lives in the October 7th attacks, and we pray to God that Israel will redeem their deaths with ultimate victory over those who wish to destroy it. And we're honored, thank you very much, and we're honored to be joined this evening by several of the victims of the October 7th attack, that horrible, horrible day. Former Hamas hostage Andrei Kozlov, who was recused. Yeah. Andrei was rescued by the IDF after 8 months of very horrible captivity. I can imagine. Where's Andrei? Is Andrei here someplace? Yes? Yes? Come on up here, Andrei. He's got more courage than I have. Come on up here. Guy. I just said, do you want to say something? And he wasn't exactly sure. Say something, Andrei.
I'm a little bit shy. I'm close to Trump, like I'm shy. What can I say? Thank you so much for this careness, and I really appreciate endlessly. Really, thank you.
Well done. We'll see you, man. Congratulations. You look beautiful.
Thank you so much.
He's a good-looking guy. Also with us is Dadi Simchi, the father of Guy Simchi, who was murdered on October 7th. And I will tell you, that was just a horrible thing, and I've said hello. Could you please stand up? What a great gentleman to suffer like he suffered. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it very much. Would you like to come up? We'd love to honor you. Would you like to come up? Come on up. Come on, in honor of your boy. In honor of your boy.
Thank you very much. I very, very appreciated what you are doing for Israel, what you did, and what you will done. I hope for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great man, what they've had to endure. Also with us are the parents of several of the current hostages, and hopefully we're going to be getting them back very, very soon. Very, very soon. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very, very much. What you're going through is very hard to even understand how it could have happened in the first place. I'd like to ask you just to stand for a second, please, in honor of what we're all here for, because we're going to get them out. They're going to come out. Thank you all very much. That's a great group of people, and that's a lot of people, too. We're going to get them out. We're going to get them out. Thank you.
Bring them home. 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 Bring them home.
Thank you very much for being with us, and we pray for you. And somehow It's going to work out. We're going to get it to work out. And this evening, we repeat the vow that we have kept in our hearts since the terrible day in October. Never again. Never again. This should never have ever happened. This should never have happened. Should never have happened. Weak leadership in the United States allowed this to happen, and it should never have happened. It would never have happened. It's so sad to see. 1 year after the horrific massacre, we are instead threatened with a different future, one in which October 7th happens again and again. We have to recognize it again and again. I'm here tonight to deliver an urgent warning to Jewish Americans and to every friend of Israel all around the world. And you have so many Christian friends. They love Israel. So important. I have so many Christian friends, and you know, when I first started running, I will tell you a story. Maybe I shouldn't, but I will. I was campaigning in 2015 in Iowa in a very Christian area, and there were about 6,000 people, and it was in a church, and they were very religious Christians. And the father, the minister, and a few others were there, and they said, "Sir, would you please say something great about Israel?" I said, "Say it again. Say it again," because I didn't realize, you know, in the old days, it wasn't like this. He said, "If I say something good about Israel, that's not a positive for this particular group, is it?" "No, sir. If you say something good about Israel, they'll love you." I said, my, things have changed. How things have changed, right, Miriam? So I was a little bit circumspect, to put it mildly. And I went out there, and that place went wild because they liked me right from the beginning. I don't know why. A lot of people have bad taste, I guess. But they liked me right from the beginning. And I said, we love Israel, and we will save Israel, and we will fight with Israel. And the place went wild. I said, what the hell is going on? They love Israel. I hate to say it. Sometimes they love Israel much more than Jewish people in New York love Israel. Alan Dershowitz knows that. They really do. It's an amazing thing, and that's when it really started, and it was incredible. But you have Christians and evangelical Christians. They love Israel so much, and it's great to see that. It's great to see it. If we continue down our current path with 4 more years of Kamala, and I don't say Harris because when I say Harris, nobody knows who the hell I'm talking about. I just said it to another group. You know, Miriam has me working hard here. I have this group, that, but this is the big one, right, Miriam? This is the big one. But don't worry, I said that to the last group also. No, she's got me working hard. But it's sort of interesting when you look at what we're doing and how important a mission we're on. If we continue down our current path with 4 more years of Kamala, Israel will be faced not just with an attack, but with total annihilation. And I hate to say it so much. It's total annihilation. That's what you're talking about. You don't have a protector. You have a big protector in me. You don't have a protector on the other side. And I've said long and loud, anybody, and especially over the last few years, anybody who's Jewish and loves being Jewish and loves Israel is a fool if they vote for a Democrat. But beyond that, if they love Israel, anybody that votes for a Democrat or Kamala especially, because this is the worst ever. This is the worst you've ever had. This one makes Barack Hussein Obama look like he loved Israel by comparison. But you should have your head examined because it will face an unceasing bloody war to obliterate the Jewish state and drive Jews out of the Holy Land. That's what they want to do. They want to drive Jews out of the Holy Land. And they are not
forgiving people. You found that out on October 7th. By the way, when Trump was president, you had no problems, did you? None. You had no problems. You ever think of that? I wanted to tell Israel that numerous times during the presidency, but I didn't want to do that and then have something bad happen. But nothing bad was going to happen. They didn't have the money to prosecute the war. Nothing was going to happen. We had everything in check, beautifully in check. And by the way, Russia would have never attacked Ukraine either, just so you know. We wouldn't have had inflation. We wouldn't have had that horrible situation in Afghanistan, where we lost 13 great soldiers, where $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment that I bought, beautiful stuff. I bought and they gave it away. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And we wouldn't have that. We left American hostages behind. Remember that. All of that wouldn't have happened. Think of it. October 7th would have not happened. That wouldn't have happened. And we wouldn't have had inflation. It was started by a stupid oil policy and a spending policy. We would have never had inflation, which has destroyed many families. Let me spell out bluntly the danger of 4 more years of weakness in this White House. If Kamala is reelected, Iran will quickly obtain nuclear weapons. They're already about ready to do it, okay? And you know, they were so broke, and I'm not looking to hurt anybody, but they were broke. I had sanctions. Anybody that did any business with Iran could not do business with the United States. I told President Xi of China, if you do business with Iran, if you buy 1 barrel of oil from Iran, you're not doing any more business with the United States, and I'm going to put on tariffs of 200%. And China didn't buy anything. And other countries likewise, other countries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Iran was ready to do something. They were ready to make a deal. They weren't spending the money because they didn't have the money to spend. And you didn't have a single strike. You had nothing happen during this period of time. It was a beautiful time. Not a single strike. Thank you very much. Thank you. So Iran will, right now, quickly obtain nuclear weapons capable of killing millions and millions of people. Jewish people, non-Jewish people. There's no discrimination with nuclear weapons, you know that. And the power is unbelievable. And I know because I renovated, fixed, and bought brand new nuclear weapons. We have the greatest nuclear stockpile now. But I hated to do it because the devastation is nothing. This will be Third World War if it happens, and we're relying on stupid people. If it happens, this will not be 2 army tanks going back and forth and shooting. This will be, again, obliteration. This could be world obliteration. And we have to get back to common sense, and we have to get back to good leaders that are respected by the other side. Our leaders are not respected by Russia. They're not respected by China. They're not respected by Kim Jong-un of North Korea. They're not respected, frankly, by anybody. From behind this nuclear shield, the regime will be free to unleash its militant terror brigades to turn the Jewish homeland into hell on earth. They've already started with October 7th. Rockets will rain down from above until the Iron Dome has been exhausted. You know, the Iron Dome is great, but when you send too many, there's not a thing it can do. It's exhausted. It becomes exhausted. They call it that. They want to exhaust, and they send up anything. They send up, they call it garbage into the air. Let them keep sending their missiles up, and eventually they don't have any missiles to protect, and that's when it begins. We can't do that. Terrorist death squads will conduct constant raids into Israeli territory from all sides, going door to door and torturing, raping, kidnapping, and massacring innocent civilians. This is what it is, and you know that better than anybody because you've just seen it. A year ago, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem will become unlivable war zones as suicide attacks grind life to a halt. So, as president, I would look at a map of the Middle East, and I'd see a massive, massive piece of land, and I'd see a little dot, just like this stage, and that, right at the top. This would be Israel. And I said to Miriam, I said to Sheldon, I said to friends of mine, how can such a big piece of land, I mean, how could this be possible where you have that little piece of land surrounded by massive numbers of people and soldiers, big armies. Iran has a big army. Big mistake when another administration took out Iraq. You know, you had two for centuries. They would fight each other under different names, under religion, but they were the same strength. And they'd fight and fight and fight, and then they'd relax. And then they'd fight and fight and fight. This went on for centuries. And then somebody who wasn't a very smart person eliminated one of the sides, and the other one was left with nobody to fight. And now the other one basically has Iraq as a subsidiary. And Iraq is very rich, and so is Iran very rich. When I was there, Iran had no money. Now Iran has $350 billion, all made in 3.5 years. They took off the sanctions. But Iraq is like a subsidiary of Iran. Don't let anyone ever tell you. And Iraq has over $300 billion. So this is a very rich two nations, and they are essentially one. And they're getting closer and closer all the time. This is a nightmare that should have never happened. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, you see the Houthis all over? They've long dreamed of making all of this come true, and if Kamala Harris wins the election, her weakness and incompetence, she's grossly incompetent. Look, she can't do an interview, okay? And let me tell you, I won that debate by a lot. By a lot. You know, I walked off the stage, I said, man, did I beat her, even though I was against 3 people. I kept saying, I said, what are you doing here? And you know, the things I said were right. Like I said, we have massive increases in crime. And David Muir said, that's not true. The statistics show that crime is going down. Anybody in their right mind, take a look at what's happening from the border. That we have crime that's worse. I said, you're wrong on that. Crime is going down. Now let's go to the next one. I said, what the hell was that all about? I only have one regret, that I wanted to be elegant and I didn't want to attack the anchors, which would have been very easy to do. So I didn't attack them, but I should have attacked them because it was 3-on-1. It's like a basketball game, 3-on-1. It's very hard. But we did well. And you know what? Since the debate, we're getting great kudos because they're analyzing the debate. They say, you know, Trump was right. I was right on everything. She made up all these stories, the bloodbath story. She made up all of these stories. It's disgraceful. And that's the problem we have. We have a fake media. And so we have to fight harder, and we have to be stronger, and we have to be much smarter. And by the way, Israel and Jewish people are attacked by the media that I can't even believe. The New York Times is controlled by a Jewish family. I don't think there's anybody worse to Israel than the New York Times is. I read articles about Israel that I know are false. The New York Times and plenty of others. So my message today is very simple. If you want Israel to survive, you need Donald J. Trump as the 47th president of the United States. It's a very simple message. Very, very simple. Right? You. Thank you, everybody. Under my leadership, America will once again stand shoulder to shoulder with our friend and ally, the State of Israel. Right now, all they do is fight the State of Israel. Don't do this, don't do that. I will support the same people that gave us Afghanistan are telling you what to do, by the way, which every one of those generals should have been fired. You know, I knocked out ISIS in 4 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years. I did it in 4 weeks. I had great generals. We have the greatest army in the world. But not the people that are on television. These are people that don't know what the hell they're doing. They should have all been fired. I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror, and it has to win it fast. Will you please win it fast? Win it, but you have to win it fast if you can. And I was always
Thank you very much. I will always defend Israel's fundamental right to exist as a Jewish nation in the Jewish homeland. That's what it's about, isn't it? But remember this, you're under attack like never before. There's never been a time like this that people can remember. This was a period, they say, if you read, and I find it very interesting, but this was just before the Holocaust. I think there's a very great similarity because nobody can believe what's been happening. If Kamala Harris wins instead of the most pro-Israel president ever, which I have been already declared to be, you will have the most anti-Israel president by far, far worse than Barack Hussein Obama. Over the past 12 months, Kamala Harris has repeatedly demanded an immediate ceasefire to save Hamas. She wants to save Hamas. Meanwhile, she and Biden deployed U.S. military to build a $230 million pier to resupply Hamas. The pier didn't work out too well. Every time there was a little rough weather, the thing got ripped apart. Those of you in the real estate business know what I'm going to say. Those contractors made a hell of a lot of money. $230 million every time there's a little rain. It blew apart. Wonderful job. This was not General Patton's bridge. General Patton knew how to build them. He built them fast and cheap. Kamala Harris has even suggested that she would consider imposing a full arms embargo against Israel, and what she wants to do. One thing about politicians, like she wants to defund the police, she wants to do all these things, no fracking, you know, now she wants fracking, no fracking. For 20 years, there will be no fracking. And then she's a chameleon. He said, that's true. She just yesterday reaffirmed her support for blocking major arms shipments, as you know, to Israel. She blocked them. If these are positions Kamala Harris takes before the election, just wait to see what she would do after the election. You won't have a country left. Israel will be doomed. I really mean that. Israel will be doomed. And, you know, I said to Miriam today, I said, you know, they have to go through a little tough love here today because we have to tell the facts. Israel will not exist within 2 years if she becomes president. And what a difference a president makes, big difference. Just 4 years ago, when I left office, the United States and Israel were safer, closer, and stronger than they have ever been before, by far. Under my leadership, we totally obliterated the ISIS caliphate. We terminated its founder and leader, al-Baghdadi. I withdrew from the horrendous Iran nuclear deal and imposed the toughest ever sanctions on the Iranian regime. They had no money. They wanted to make a deal. The saddest part, they had no money. They wanted to make a deal. And these guys came in and they never made a deal. You could have made any deal, but now they're rich again because he took all the sanctions off and everybody started buying, in particular China. China went from buying nothing under Trump to buying billions and billions of dollars of oil a month. I withdrew from the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council, which was a big thing. I sanctioned the anti-American and anti-Israel radicals of the International Criminal Court. Many of you know what that meant. That was a big deal. I defunded the Palestinian Authority and choked off all of the money to Hamas. Don't forget, nobody ever did that. I said, how much are we paying them? Almost $1 billion, sir. I say, they treat us so disrespectfully. They say death to America, and we're giving them money. Why are we giving them money when they say death to America? So I said, how much money do we give them? Almost $1 billion. I said, tell them they're in default. You're not supposed to treat us that way when we give you money. Tell them that they won't be getting money anymore until such time as we make a deal. And I will tell you, we had them very, very close, and then we had an election that really hurt it, and too bad. But we did do the Abraham Accords and other things, but I would have even preferred to do this. We would have had something done. Just as I promised, I recognized Israel's eternal capital and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Jerusalem became the capital. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You know, Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody. outside of people that worked there. And they were always after, and as soon as I'd give them something, always for Israel. As soon as I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I said, give me a couple of weeks, will you please? But I gave them the Golan Heights, and they never even asked for it. You know, for 72 years, they've been trying to do the Golan Heights, right? And even Sheldon didn't have the nerve. But I said, you know what? I said to David Friedman, give me a quick lesson, like 5 minutes or less on the Golan Heights. And he did. And I said, let's do it. We got it done in about 15 minutes, right? 72 years. You know, for 72 years, it's true. Planes would fly in, fly out, fly in. In the old days, they weren't such nice planes. But they'd fly in every year. They'd have a meeting on the Golan Heights. They'd have lunch. They'd have dinner. They'd have this. They'd have that. They'd leave. Nothing would happen, right? And then one day, Trump came along, and it was done very quickly. 4 years ago, last Sunday, we signed the historic Abraham Accords. It's a big deal. And secured peace in the Middle East. That was peace in the Middle East, really. 4 very strong countries, and we would have had all of the countries signed. I'll even make, we would have had, in my opinion, I know this sounds ridiculous, I believe Iran even would have signed because of all of the benefits and all of the trade and all of the other things. I believe that, but we won't get a chance to see that because the 4 countries are still 4 countries. Within 6 months, we would have had just about all of the countries done. Biden and Kamala have done no countries into the Abraham. It's still there with the 4, but nothing's been added to it. It's a shame. But from the moment Kamala got to the White House, she and Crooked Joe took over historic successes and turned them into unprecedented failure and peril. You know that. Harris restored funding to the Palestinian organizations immediately, giving them billions and billions of dollars. And much of that money went directly to Hamas. Then Kamala and Joe Biden delivered over $100 billion in sanctions relief, all stuff that I held back. And I would have been very good. They would have been very happy. I wanted one thing from Iran, no nuclear weapon. I didn't want much, no nuclear weapon. And now they're very close to getting it, and you can't let that happen. They're very close to getting it. Here at home, Kamala's partnered, and she's partnered with anybody she can. You hear the things coming out of the administration. You hear what they're saying. But she pandered to the Hamas supporters and the anti-Semites in her own party. The things she says, it's not even believable. She said that radical anti-Israel demonstrators at college campuses were, quote, showing what human emotion should be. Oh, isn't that nice? I'm telling you, Israel has no chance. Jewish people that love Israel have no chance. As border czar, which she denies she ever was, but she was the border czar. But even if she wasn't, she was in charge of the border. So what difference does it make? She let in thousands and thousands of terrorists at our southern border. 21 million people, of which thousands of terrorists have poured in. When I was there, I let in almost none, almost none. They had a chart that was a very well-known chart. I liked it very much. It's probably my favorite chart of all time. Remember that? I looked to the right. Let me see that chart. I looked. It's my favorite chart of all time, but it showed the great numbers that we had. But one of the numbers that was released recently was that in 2019, one of my years, I don't believe this number, by the way. It was done by Homeland Security. I appreciate it, but I don't believe it. I had no terrorists coming into the United States. They had 0. Now we have thousands. So I don't believe the 0, but the number was very low. 10, 12, 5. How can it be 0? But they actually have 0. Then I had 0 terrorists. So we used to check it, but we had very little. Now we have thousands and thousands of terrorists pouring into our country. It's so sad, and only bad can happen. Only bad things are going to happen. She imported migrants from terrorist hotspots all over the world, and now we have armies of jihadist sympathizers brazenly marching through the streets of our cities. I've never seen anything like it. Where did they come from? How did they get here? Kamala Harris is the candidate of the forces that want to destroy Western civilization. The other day, in fact, it was yesterday, the FBI reported that Iran has spied on my campaign, I'm going to have to hire Alan Dershowitz. Only Alan Dershowitz could do. Iran has spied on my campaign, think of this, and given the information to Kamala. What's that all about? That alone should get me elected. Think of it. Iran got the information from my campaign and gave it immediately to Kamala and the campaign apparatus over on the other side. I'm the candidate of those who want to defend Western civilization, defend Israel, and defend the United States of America. When I return to the White House, we will quickly restore stability in the Middle East, and we will return the world to peace. And remember the phrase, peace through strength. You know, I had no wars for 4 years. I remember crooked Hillary Clinton. Remember, she was up debating me, and she said, look at him. Look at his rhetoric. He's going to cause wars. I said, no, my rhetoric's going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. We had no war for 4 years, other than I finished off ISIS. No war. First time in 78 years, by the way, just to brag a little bit, because nobody else is going to say it if I don't. Israel will have the support it needs and the powerful ally that it deserves in the United States. Here at home, I will ban refugee resettlement from terror-infested areas like the Gaza Strip. We will restore the travel ban, some people call it the Trump travel ban, and keep the radical Islamic terrorists out of our country. That was upheld by the Supreme Court, and it really did work. Again, we had no terrorist attacks into the United States. Think of it. Now I'm talking United States, if that's okay. We had no terrorist attacks for 4 years. Nothing. Nothing. They knew, don't play games with us. And we will deport the foreign jihad sympathizers and Hamas supporters from our midst. We will get them out. If you hate America, if you want to eliminate Israel, we will throw you out of our country so rapidly your head will spin. We're going to get them back. We're going to get those beautiful kids in some cases, because they're always your children. You know, they'll say, oh, he said children. No, they're always your children. And some older people also, by the way, but we're going to get them back. We got to get them back. We can't let this happen again. So incredible that you're, to make the trip, so many people. It makes me realize how important this is, Miriam, frankly, for so many people to make the trip. And there's nothing more important than what you're going through. And there's nothing more important than the people that you love. And it will be so beautiful to see it work out well. We got to make it work out well. Got to make it. Thank you. And to confront the crisis of anti-Semitism at our universities, I will tell college presidents that they must end the anti-Semitic propaganda, or they will lose their accreditation and they will lose all federal support. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is the most important election in the history of the United States, and it's also the most important election in the history of Israel. Can you imagine that? A non-Israeli election is the single most important election that Israel will ever have. Isn't that something? With all I have done for Israel, I received only 24% of the vote. But I understood that. That was in 2016. And, you know, it's one of those things I thought I'd do much better. I happen to have a Jewish daughter. I have a Jewish son-in-law. I have 3 Jewish grandchildren. I thought I'd do much better. But I only got 24%. Think of that. And then I became president
of the United States and was the best president ever for Israel and for the Jewish people by far. Nobody was close. I gave them Golan Heights. I gave them the Abraham Accords. I recognized the capital of Israel and opened the embassy in Jerusalem. And most importantly of all, I terminated the Iran nuclear deal, which was the worst deal ever made in the history of Israel, in the history of the Middle East. I was there 4 years, gave them billions and billions of dollars. I was the best friend Israel ever had. And still in 2020, now I've done all these things, so now Jewish people have no excuse. I got 29%. I went from 25 to 29%. Think of that. Honestly, you didn't treat yourselves well. You didn't. It was a terrible thing. And what made me even more upset about it is the current polling has just been announced. Now, I just announced the polls and I'm now polling at about 40%. That means 60% of Jewish people are going to vote for Kamala or a Democrat. And honestly, you ought to have your heads examined. You ought to have your heads examined. And those votes may be necessary for us to win. I say us to win because we're in this together. But who are these people? Who are the 60% that would vote? And I really believe that bad things, very bad things are going to happen. And I'll put it to you very simply and as gently as I can. I wasn't treated properly by the voters who happen to be Jewish. I don't know, do they know what the hell is happening? If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy. Israel, in my opinion, will cease to exist within 2 years, and I believe I'm 100% right. You know, there's a hat that comes out, Trump was right about everything, and I believe I'm right. And that's a hell of a thing to say, but I believe I'm right. If I do win, Israel will be safe and secured. We will stop the toxic poison of anti-Semitism from spreading here. All over America, it's spreading. It's spreading like it's never spread before. I've never seen anything like it. I really believe it would be obliteration, and it'll happen quickly, too. It's very close to happening. With your vote, we will reject anti-Semitism in our schools, reject it in our foreign policy. We will reject it in our immigration system. But all of that starts with rejecting Kamala Harris at the ballot box this election. Number one, she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She doesn't know. She can't do an interview. How do you think she'll do against President Xi? She can't do an interview. And I'm not even saying she's stupid for not doing that, but her handlers know what they're doing. Can't have it. We went through 4 years of that. We can't go through another 4 years of that. Together, we will save the United States of America, and we will save the state of Israel on November 5th, 2024. It will be the most important day in the history of Israel. It'll be the most important day in the history of the United States. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you. God bless Israel. Thank you. I won, but I understood that. And then I became president and was the best president ever for the people of Israel and for Jewish people, the best president ever. And I did more for them than any president has, and probably any president can do or will do, other than the current situation that's coming up, because I have a feeling that maybe that's going to be more than anything that was even done in the past, if you want to know the truth, because I think Israel's in big trouble. But I gave them, as Miriam said, Golan Heights. I gave them the Abraham Accords, which is amazing. Nobody thought that was possible. 4 strong, powerful countries signed. Think of it. I would have had every country signed. I might have even had Iran signed, okay? As crazy as that sounds. You're kidding. You know that, Michael. I might have even had that. But we had peace in the Middle East. When I left, we had peace in the Middle East, but I had the Abraham Accords. And it was something that if Obama had done it, that would have been any prize. You named the prize, but they would have had every single prize ever devised by man. I did it. Nobody said a thing. And that's okay. I do the right thing. And I was helped a lot by Jared and a lot of other people that really understood what was going on. But I recognized the capital of Israel and opened the embassy in Jerusalem and got it built. Not just had it there. You know, the generals came in one of my days in office. They said, "Sir, could you sign this? What is it?" It said, "Order for $2 billion to be spent on an embassy that would have cost much more." I said, "Where's the land?" "We don't have it yet, sir, but we have a couple of terrible sites under negotiation." I'm good at real estate. These were bad locations in Jerusalem. I said, "Do we have anything?" "Let us look, sir." And they do. They had a site that was better than anything we had, a much better location, and we have it for nothing. So far I'm doing a good job. Then I said, "Is there a building on it?" "Yes, there is, but it's not in use." I said, "Is it structurally sound?" "Oh, yes, very strong, very structurally sound." "Is it setback?" Because you want setbacks for embassies for things called bombs. "Yes, it's setback, and it's on high. It's one of the best locations." I said, "So we have it." So I dealt with David Friedman. I said, "David, how much would it cost to renovate the building? Give me a good price." And he came back and said $400,000. I said, "David, that's too low." This is the only time I've ever said this. Usually I say, "It's too high, cut them in half." This time I said, "That's crazy. From $2 billion, think of it, to $400,000. And I said, "That's too low. We got to spend more." And we ended up spending a little bit more than that, very little. And a friend of mine has, a couple of you have heard this, Jerusalem stone in his office building. And every time I walk by the elevator bank, he says, "Look at this stone. It's Jerusalem stone, so expensive." And I said to him, very successful guy, very rich guy, and he was complaining about the price. "It's Jerusalem." But every time, after 20 times, I said, "Don't tell me it's Jerusalem stone again." Right on the elevator bank, beautiful stone, Jerusalem stone. So I'm there, and I say, "Listen, by any chance," talking to one of the contractors, I said, "Do you think you could use Jerusalem stone? Is it expensive?" "No, it's cheap as hell. We're in Jerusalem." And we built the whole building out of Jerusalem stone. And we did it very inexpensively, got it opened in about 4 or 5 months. You would still be talking about your $2 billion building, Ted. That building would be under talk for about 5 more years, and then they'd spend $5 billion, and it would look like hell. This building is better. You'll never do better. Someday they'll rip it down and do some monster. But I was very proud we got it built. And most importantly of all, in my opinion, because I asked, what's the best? Golan Heights, is it? Is it Jerusalem, the capital, moving the embassy and all of that? What is the best? What's the best? Is it the Abraham Accords? And some friends of mine that are very smart, no, not even close. The best thing you ever did for Israel is you terminated the Iran nuclear deal, which was the worst deal ever made for Israel or for any country. That was the best. That's true. That was more important. Remember, that was more important than any of the other things, of the many other things that we did. The problem is that Harris, Kamala, and Biden did absolutely nothing with it. You could have made after the election, which we had a very bad thing happen with that election. Think of it. If that election were proper, you wouldn't have had Russia attacking Ukraine. You wouldn't have had October 7th. Would have never happened because, as you know, Iran had no money at that time. None. Zero. Nothing. They had no money to fund. There were stories about it, that there was no money for terror. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had that horrible leaving of Afghanistan in such a way, not the leaving because we were ready to leave. We would have left before them, but we were leaving with strength and dignity. That was the worst. I think it was the lowest day, the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. Because of that, probably that's why Putin went in. He would have never gone in with me, though. But all of these things, and on top of everything else, I gave them more than $20 billion, Israel. And I said, when I did it, I said, I'm the best friend they ever had. And still, in 2020, so remember, I got 25%. Now I did all of these things, and I got 29%. Think of it. So I wasn't treated right. But it's not me that's been treated badly. It's Israel, because you can make a big difference in the vote. You're going to be a big factor in the vote. I will say places like Miami and different places were great. But honestly, I went from 25 to 29, and based on what I did and based on my love of the same love that you have, I should be at 100. I should be at 100. But let me give you the bad news. A poll, I just told you how good the polls are, but we need every vote we can get. The current polling has me with Jewish citizens, Jewish people that's supposed to love Israel. After having done all of that, having been the best president, the greatest president by far, a poll just came out. I'm at 40%. That means you got 60% voting for somebody that hates Israel. And I say it's going to happen. It's only because of the Democrat hold or curse on you. You can't let this happen. 40% is not acceptable because we have an election to win. So after all of this, I went from 29 to 40%. And people that are smart said to me, friend of mine Jewish, friend of mine loves Israel, loves everything about your religion and about your country, your place. He said, I can't believe it's happening. It's sad. And he started to cry, actually. He started to cry. With all of this, and he's a tough cookie. I don't think he cried since he was a little tiny baby. Maybe then I don't think he cried. I don't think he cried then, Miriam. But I will put it to you very simply and gently. I really haven't been treated right, but you haven't been treated right because you're putting yourself in great danger, and the United States hasn't been treated right. So if I don't win this election, and I've been very good, you know, they say Trump's been right about everything. I've been right about a lot of things. Even Ted will admit that. I've been right about...
Your leaders yesterday at the UN General Assembly came together to call for an immediate ceasefire. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is speaking at the UN tomorrow. He has refused to do that. What would you do differently to prevent the Middle East...
Well, you have to have that ended one way or the other. The world isn't going to take it. You have to have that ended, and I would think that we're getting close to a point where maybe it can end pretty soon. But you're going to have to end. That's unacceptable. The whole thing over there is unacceptable. That's another one. October 7th would have never happened. Would have never happened. Ukraine and Russia would have never happened. Think of it. Would have never happened. Inflation would have never happened. Think of the world. The Afghanistan pullout in that way. We would have pulled out, but we would have pulled out with dignity and strength. I'm the one that got it down to that number. But I would have kept Bagram, because Bagram is this massive Air Force base that we built many, many years ago with billions and billions of dollars, the most powerful runways that can hold more load than any other runway in the world. And we walked away from it. And it wasn't Afghanistan that was the problem. We walked away from a great military base that we built to the highest specifications that was 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We are being run by Kamala, who is grossly incompetent. All you have to do is look at her interview last night, look at her interview with Oprah, look at her interview with the gentleman from Pennsylvania. All you have to do is look around and you'll see it. We had 4 years of incompetent leadership. We cannot, as a country, sustain another 4 years. Thank you very much. And then on top of that, as you know, the world right now is spiraling out of control. You might not have seen what's happened because it was a few hours ago. A lot of people were here. There's so many people outside, which we appreciate. But a lot of people were here. A short time ago, Iran launched 181 ballistic missiles at Israel. And I've been talking about World War III for a long time. And I don't want to make predictions because the predictions always come true. We're not going to make, but they are very close to global catastrophe. We have a non-existent president and a non-existent vice president who should be in charge, but nobody knows what's going on. She was at a fundraiser in San Francisco, a city that she totally destroyed, by the way. San Francisco was the best city in the country maybe 20 years ago, and today you can't even go there. You can't even live there. And I speak against myself because I own property there. I shouldn't be saying that. I should say it's the greatest place in the world,
let's sell my property. But I say it's, I don't know, maybe it stages a comeback, but it's literally not livable. And 20 years ago, it was the best city in the country, probably one of the best cities anywhere in the world. But they, she was caught yesterday on an airplane staging a fake photo op. Did you see that with the telephone? The only problem is she didn't have the phone plugged in. She was talking. She's talking on the phone. The phone is not plugged in. She's talking like she's working. I'm working so hard. Oh, boy, what a group. What a group. No one is in charge of our country, and it's not even clear. Really, I mean, who's in charge between the two of them? You have a president, I guess. You have a vice president, I guess. She should have never been chosen because she never got any votes. I'm not a big fan of his, but he got 14 million votes, and that was a coup. Would you say, Scott, that was a coup? If Scott Walker says it was a coup, Tommy, I say it was a coup, okay? But it was a coup. It was terrible, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. And we're doing great in the polls. They just came out with new ones. Rasmussen, we're really good. I mean, it took a little honeymoon. For 4 weeks you did nothing but hear about. She went from being the worst vice president in history. He's the worst president in history. It's the worst administration by far in the history of our country. Look at our border where people are pouring in and they're criminals and they're murderers and drug dealers. Look at what they've done. And then she goes up 5 days ago, and tries to explain that, we're going to do great things in the future. And I always say that everything they say, why didn't you do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do it? They keep talking. She said, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to, but she's not going to do any of it. They're incompetent. We can't have another 4 years. We can't have another 4 years of what we went through. It's embarrassing. The whole world is laughing at us. That's why Israel was under attack just a little while ago, because they don't respect our country anymore. The so-called enemy doesn't respect our country any longer. They don't. And, you'll get it back soon, I hope. Thank you. Whoever that is. Who is that person? Who said that? Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Even though she disturbed my chain of thought. That kind of a disturbance we don't mind, right? But when I was president, Iran was in total check. The Iranians were starved for cash. Nobody was buying their oil. And they were ready to make a deal. They wanted to make a deal. They wanted to do something. And terrible thing. We got more votes in the second election, as you know. We had 2016, 2020. We got millions and millions more votes the second time. And they missed by just a little sliver, right? Somebody said like 18, 19,000 votes. It's just a disgrace. They're not going to be able to do that a second time. They're not going to be able to do that a second time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made Iran rich in a very short period of 3.5 years. They have $300 billion now. They're rich. I mean, they pay $6 billion every time they have if they have somebody that was kidnapped. It's always $6 billion. Who ever heard of that? Somebody else gets like $4,000. How much you want? Give me $2,000. You have anything? $6 billion. It's always $6 billion. With Russia, it was $6 billion. And they also got back their spy, the greatest spy, they say perhaps. He was a spy, but he was really more of an arms merchant. And the greatest arms merchant, the greatest buyer of military equipment, they say, anywhere at any time. They got him back, but we got our basketball player back. That was the trend. Well, that is true. She used to tie her sneakers during the national anthem, right? And we got her back, and they got the best. And I'm not saying he's a nice human being, but he was the #1 arms dealer in the world for a long time. But Iran was on the verge of bankruptcy. They had no money left. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah, the people they're fighting now. They would have been willing to make any deal. You could have made any deal, but Kamala flooded them with American cash. And even now, I mean, they're flooding them with cash.
Honestly, it's not even believable. It's like men and women's sports. It's not believable. It's like open borders. Why would they want an open border? It's so stupid. We're the party of common sense, by the way. We are the, I like to say it all. Forget conservative, yes. But, we're the party of common sense because it's really more common sense than anything else. We want borders. We want fair elections. We want honest elections. And if you don't have those two things, you don't have a country, really. And we don't have a border. We had, coming into our country in the last three and a half years, more than 21 million people. And many of those people were people you do not want to have in your country. And we'll discuss that in a couple of seconds. But ever since Iran has been exporting terror all over the world, and it's been just unraveling. The whole Middle East has been unraveling. But, of course, the whole world has been unraveling since we left office. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. This would have never happened in the Middle East. It wouldn't have been on October 7th. You wouldn't have had inflation. We'll go to a different topic. You wouldn't have had inflation. None of these things would have happened. How about Afghanistan, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, in my opinion? Not that we're getting out. I would have gotten out. We were going to get out with dignity and strength, but they get out at the most embarrassing, people falling 3,000 feet off airplanes. The whole thing was bedlam. We lost 13 great soldiers. I got to know their families. And a lot of people, they never talk about the people that lost their arms, their legs, their face. They obliterated. And hundreds of people died. Hundreds of people died that day on the other side, because I count the other side too. But hundreds of people, gross incompetence. You don't take the military out first, let's put it that way. He took the military. Remember, a year ago, I brought a young boy who was 5 years old, took him out of the audience. I gave him a quick little study. And I said at the end, so now you know everything about the event. Do you take the military out first or last? He looked at me, you take the military out last, sir. The kid was 5 years old. But we took the military out first, and that's when it came. That was what happened. For 18 months, not one, under my administration, 18 months, not one soldier was shot at. Not one soldier in Afghanistan was killed. And, well, I talked to the leader, because they were killing a lot of our soldiers with sniper fire, and they were killing a lot of our soldiers. And during the Obama-Biden administration, and I called the head of the Taliban, because it's the Taliban that really, and they said, how come you're calling him, the press, the fake news? Look at all of them. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of cameras. But I called his name, Abdul. I said, Abdul, you're not going to do this anymore, Abdul. Anyway, it's a long story. They said, why would you call him? I said, because that's where the problem is, with Abdul and with the Taliban. And it's like Jesse James. He said, Jesse, why do you always go after banks? Why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is. Pretty simple story, right? But that's where the problem was. And since that time, 18 months, we didn't have one soldier killed or even shot at, not one soldier. But they took the military. When they took over, they took the military, and then all hell broke loose. These people are grossly incompetent. And now we have them in charge of potentially World War III. And World War III is going to be like no other if it happens, because of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction like nobody's ever seen before. I know, because I rebuilt our military. I rebuilt it. It needed it. And I hated rebuilding that, but I rebuilt that too, because we had no choice. But Iran had no money when I was in charge. They had a lot of money when I started. They had no money when I finished. And now they have $300 billion and another $300 billion from their wholly owned subsidiary, Iraq. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. They probably don't like it when I say that, but that's true. Iraq doesn't like it. But they have $300 billion also from oil. Remember, I used to say, don't go into Iraq. Don't do it. To Bush. Don't do it. Don't go into Iraq. But they went into Iraq. Then they were there. I said, all right, you're there. Keep the oil. Just keep the oil. Remember I used to say, keep the oil. You know, Iraq has more oil than almost anybody. It's like massive.
but they didn't keep the oil, and they have hundreds of billions of dollars right now. Under my administration, we had no war in the Middle East. We had no war in Europe. We had harmony in Asia. We had no inflation. We had no Afghanistan catastrophe. Instead, we had peace, peace, peace. We had a lot of peace. Think of it. The only war we had was ISIS. And I went to ISIS. I wanted to see what the hell was going on. I went to Iraq. I flew there late at night, middle of the night. I landed and spoke to a lot of great people. And I spoke to a general, Raisin Cain. You know that story. I won't go into it. But Raisin Cain, General Raisin Cain, a real general. And these aren't like the guys you see on television. These are the real generals. We have unbelievable military. Believe me. We wiped them out in 4 weeks instead of 5 years.
Under your administration, you brought world peace. We didn't have any chaos in the world.
No.
I wanted to get your comments on what's going on right now in Israel and Iran, that conflict.
Brian, I think it's the most dangerous time we've had, certainly since the end of the Second World War. I think it could end up being a world war. You have two hot spots, and you'll probably have a third, maybe with Taiwan. But you have Ukraine and Russia, and that's out of control. I met with President Zelensky, and I got along very well with President Putin. I think I can get it solved, but we should get on it immediately. I think I would like to be able to solve it while president-elect. If I get elected, I'm going to work on that immediately. It's going to be my first 2 phone calls. And my second is going to be, we're going to close the border immediately and have people come into our country, but legally. And my third will be drill, baby, drill. You know, it's like not too complicated. But that series of calls, I think is going to be very important. That war, millions of people are being killed. I don't think people recognize how many people are being killed. I don't think it's being properly reported. It's a horrible, horrible war. And then you see what's happening even today. You know, where is that going to stop? And, you know, you have to give Israel a lot of credit for being able to protect itself. You look at these forces, they shot down almost 200 rockets today. But this is not the way anybody should have to live. So we're going to obviously be very involved in the Middle East. This would have never happened. We did the Abraham Accords. I think everybody, including Iran, would have been in the Abraham Accords had I taken over as president. I think even Iran would have been in the Abraham Accords ultimately. It would have been great for everybody, and you would have had peace in the Middle East. We got 4 countries solved, and very respected countries, as you know. They were signed up. And then when Biden took over, they haven't signed one country. I would have had every country in the Middle East would have been signed up. The only question would be Iran, and I think they would have, you know, for certain reasons, I think they probably would have been there too. There would have been peace in the Middle East. Instead, this is just tearing it apart. This has really been bad. But they have to finish that process. However it turns out, they have to finish the process. This is a little bit like 2 kids fighting in the schoolyard. Sometimes you have to just sort of let it go a little bit, and we'll see what happens. But it's really caused by a lack of respect for the United States of America. This would have never happened. Israel would have never happened. October 7th never would have happened. Russia never would have invaded Ukraine. And for 4 years they didn't. They would have never invaded. We wouldn't have had inflation. We wouldn't have had, not the withdrawal, because we were withdrawing. We're the ones that got it ready to withdraw. But we wouldn't have had that horrible, most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And a lot of other good things would have happened. And right now we have a world in chaos. I always quote Viktor Orban because he's a very respected, tough guy. They say he's a tough guy. Well, I guess they're all sort of tough guys. But Viktor Orban said, if Trump comes back, you won't have any wars. You won't have any wars. And he's about as tough as they get. And he said it loud and clear. And he said why. But you won't have any wars. So I just want to see, look, there's no huge benefit. I think Europe has to pay up more because it's very unequal, and they have to pay up more for that, and they have to do it now because we have an ocean in between. It's much more important to Europe than it is to us, but we want to see that war taken care of, and we certainly want to see peace in the Middle East as soon as it's possible. All right? Thank you very much. Yeah. Please.
You met with President Zelensky last week. Should President Zelensky be prepared to Ukraine territory in order to end the war? And the second part here is, if you were president right now, after Iran launched its more than 200 missiles towards Israel, last week you had suggested that if Iran tried to attack you, that you would blow the country to smithereens. How would you handle Iran right now?
Well,
would you use
be
U.S.
around if they
force?
did that,
Would you use U.S. force?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be around if they did that, but let's assume I'm not around. The President of the United States should blow that country to smithereens, because you can't do that. And the President should make a statement to that effect. But as you know, I mean, you're in danger right now. You are in danger now because of them and their challenge to me. And the reason they did that is because I had them in a position where they would have made a deal. They had no money. There was no terrorism. There was no money for Hamas. There was no money for Hezbollah. You know that. I mean, that was reported when I was leaving. They said there was absolutely no terrorism. In 4 years, we had no terrorism. And a large part of that was Iran had no money. And I wasn't looking to hurt them. I was looking to, I want them to be wonderful and great and happy. But we didn't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
Would you use U.S. force today?
Well, I don't want to say what I'd use, because I don't want to give up negotiating abilities, so I don't want to say exactly. But they understand where I stand. And we have to get back to being at least a partially civilized world. What's going on today? They sent 200 missiles over to Israel. And now people would say, well, now it's Israel's turn, right? That's what happens. It goes back and forth. It could happen for a long time. Should have never happened. It would never have happened. And again, Iran was not in a position to sponsor terror because they didn't have any money. I mean, now they have $300 billion. Biden took off all the sanctions. I had sanctions. I told China, if you buy oil from Iran, that was their biggest customer, you're not going to do any business in the United States, and we're going to put tariffs all over your products. And they said, well, we're going to pass. And they didn't buy. And I said the same thing to other countries, and they didn't buy. And time went by, and all of a sudden they had no money. And they would have made a deal, and I would have made a good deal for them. I'm not looking to hurt them. I want them to be great. Let them be happy and good. But they can't have a nuclear weapon. And now they're very close to having one. And it's very dangerous for the world. Very dangerous for the world. I mean, the biggest problem today, in my opinion, the biggest risk is the nuclear weapons, the weaponry. It's so powerful today. And I know because I rebuilt the United States military. During my term, I rebuilt it. We had fighter jets that were 50 years old. And we have all F-35s, and we have great planes now. We have largely new. We gave a lot of it to Afghanistan, stupidly. New goggles. They had the newest goggles. They had the best goggles. They never fought at night because they couldn't see, but now they can fight at night. They have the goggles. They have the trucks that are armor plated. Think of the 70,000 trucks. 70,000. Go to the biggest used car lot in America, and they probably don't have more than 400 or 500 cars available at any one time. We have 70,000 trucks, many of them millions of dollars each, armor plated with the finest 4, 5, 6-inch armor on these trucks. And we gave it to them. And they sell the equipment. And they're one of the largest sellers of military equipment. They're selling the equipment that we gave them. Who would do that? Who would be so stupid to do that? Who would move the military out first? Because, you know, they have American hostages. Most importantly, we lost 13 great soldiers. And of tremendous importance, we have many soldiers that lost their arms and their legs and were just obliterated because of stupid people. We should have left from Bagram, not that base. We had it all mapped out. And we had options. We had a lot of things they had to do, everything they had to do. And they weren't doing it. And we said, good, the deal's dead. And then they did it. We would have had that. It was perfect. It was a beautiful thing. It was going to go well. And they respected me. They respected me. Remember, we didn't have one soldier killed in 18 months in Afghanistan. The Taliban, that's their fighter. And I spoke to Abdul, the head of the Taliban, a couple of times. But I explained to him, you can't do that. You can't do that, Abdul. And from the time I spoke to him, we didn't have not one fighter killed, not one American soldier killed or even shot at for 18 months. And then I left, and we had these clowns take over, and it all blew up. It was not going to blow up. It was going to be good. One of the worst things they did is give up one of the largest air bases in the world, the largest runways, most powerful runways, very deep with concrete. You could land anything on them, meaning the weight. You could land any plane on a very very long, I think like 18,000 feet, and to give that up, and the importance of it wasn't Afghanistan. The importance of Bagram, and very important, was it was 1 hour away from China where they make their nuclear weapons, right in that area. But 1 hour away from China. Forget about Afghanistan. We should have never been there. But we were 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. And now, you know who occupies it? China. How about that? They left. So I was never going to, I was moving out. We were all set to move. I'm the one that got the soldiers down to that level. We had no problem. And we were going to move out. Soldiers would have moved out less. We would have taken the equipment. We would have done everything. I had no confidence in the army, meaning in their army, the people that they were giving us, because they were loyal to the other side. I always knew that. That's why you had so many blue on brown and brown on blue. You had so many attacks where we trained them, and then we hand them a gun, and they turn the gun around. They shoot the sergeants and everybody else there, the Americans. I said, well, there's something. We never had so many attacks like that. We trained them, and as soon as they get a gun that's loaded, they turn it and they shoot everybody. And I said, what the hell's going on over here? And they're tough fighters too, but they weren't. The reason they were even in there is because they were the highest paid soldiers in the world. When Mattis would say, sir, they're fighting for their country, well, they weren't really fighting for their country, because otherwise you wouldn't have had so many, I call them turnarounds, where they turn around and shoot you. They weren't fighting. They were fighting because they were getting so much money as a soldier. It's a job where they were making a lot of money, but their loyalty wasn't to that group. And the head guy was a total thief. I knew that. I didn't get along with him at all. He left with bags of money in a helicopter, and there were bags of money at the end of the runway. How stupid can Americans be? The world doesn't respect us because we've made so many stupid moves. I mean, this guy left with bags of money, and I said he was no good for years. I said he was no good. I met with him a couple of times, fine, but that whole thing was collapsing. But they weren't loyal to us. They were loyal to themselves. Good fighters, great fighters, I will tell you. Among the best. They were actually they could take a knife. They were like Rambos. It's like putting 1,000,000 Rambos. Good old Sylvester Stallone is my friend. But it's like putting 1,000,000 Rambos. Somebody explained that to me. They're great fighters. It's like putting a Rambo. Give him a knife, and that's all he needs. And by the time he finishes, he'll go down and he slits the throats. Look at what happened with Russia with them. Look at what happened. So many different wars. They fight tough, but now they have great equipment. And then the other day, it sickens you to see it. They have through their boulevard. They have this boulevard, and they're running our equipment through the boulevard. You know, the defeated Americans. We should have left from Bagram, because Bagram is a massive base with hundreds of miles of surrounding area with nothing there and fencing, and you would have had nobody killed. Instead, a lot of people got killed. We had the 13, but you had hundreds of people who were killed. Civilians were killed at the same time. So it's a shame. Again, common sense. We have to use common sense. They should have never left. That's like an inner city airport, and it was packed. You couldn't even move, and then a bomb went off and just was so destructive. And so sad, because I got to know the parents of the 13 soldiers, most of them, and they're incredible people. They were treated very unfairly. Biden never called them. Kamala never called them. And then on top of it all, in the debate, she said, we have no soldiers fighting at all. We have no soldiers. We have soldiers fighting. They were very inside. She had no idea. She has no idea what she's doing. And it's very sad. Okay. Wow, that was something, huh? Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you. Very special woman, I have to say that. Friend of mine for a long time, and she is very, very special. And her husband is, this was one tough cookie. He loved Israel. And you talk about special. That was a special man, wasn't he? It was great. So I want to thank you very much, Miriam, and for all of the exceptional commitment that you've given to the safety and security and the prosperity of the United States and Israel. Before we begin, I would like to tell you that there's a very violent hurricane that's coming down the line, and it's a Category 5, which is something that I've never heard a Category 5 actually coming onto land, but it looks like it's going to. And right smack in the middle of Florida, nobody's seen a line like that. and it's heading there quickly. I have to tell you that I called Miriam. I said, I was in New York, and I said, Miriam, maybe I shouldn't be flying. I think I'm the only person that flew down to Florida tonight because I didn't have a chance with her. So, I said, Miriam, maybe I should stay back and, heading into a hurricane, Miriam. It made no difference. No, you have to be here. Our friends are there. And I said, okay, when you say that, I'm going to be there 100%. I'm going to be there. I was watching the airplane highways, and they were all heading this way as I was going that way. They said, what's he doing? But I wouldn't have missed this regardless. I wouldn't have missed this for anything. This is a very special time, and it's a very special day. This is the day we have to do it. This was the day we had to do it. We don't have to postpone it for a week. This is the day, because I'm looking forward to coming back and maybe seeing all of these seats filled up the next time. That's what I want. Yeah, that's what we want. So we're praying for Florida, and we hope everyone is safe, and we're praying for North Carolina and all of the different places. You look at Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida. It's amazing. This has been an amazing period of time, but the response has been very weak, unbelievably weak. Nobody's ever seen such a weak response, so we have to get a strong response. And now we have another one coming, and it looks like it's going to be a whopper. I also want to thank Rabbi Kaplan for doing such a great job. I appreciate it. Your son, I appreciate that. And we have a lot of very, very powerful people here tonight, great people. Senator Rick Scott, a big fan of Miriam and a big fan of Israel. Members of Congress, Carlos Jimenez, Mario Diaz-Balart, thank you. Maria Salazar, Guy Reschenthaler, David Kutzoff, Congressman Lee Zeldin. He's helping us win New York. We got to win New York. We're going to see if we can do it, right, Lee? We're going to see if we can do it. Ambassador David Friedman, what a job he did. Everybody loved him. Robin Bernstein, where's Robin? Robin, hi, Robin. How are you? Good job you did as the ambassador. And Duke Buchan, thank you very much. You raised a lot of money for our campaign. We appreciate it. The Consul General, and I think you all know, Mara, where are you? Where is he? Where is he? What a good job you've done. Where are you? Thank you very much. What a beautiful job. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Florida House members, Danny Perez and Randy Fine. Randy Fine. Where is Randy Fine? Randy Fine's been out there. Thank you, Randy. Great job. State Senator Ileana Garcia, Keith Raboy, thank you. Ed Russo, Ed Russo, environmental specialist. Whenever I have a problem, I call Ed Russo, and he solves the environmental problem for me. We appreciate it. And somebody who's been a great defender of ours on television, on Fox and elsewhere, but particularly on Fox, Elizabeth Pipko. Where's Elizabeth? She has been so great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And a person, one of the greatest business people in the country, in the United States, and I think actually beyond. And she's been a fan, and I've been a fan of hers, but she's been a friend of mine for a long time. Safra Katz, thank you very much. Thank you, Safra. Haven't seen you. You look well. So we're here this evening in solemn remembrance of one of the darkest hours in all of human history. 1 year ago today, every civilized person was filled with shock and horror and grief at the news of an evil and so absolute that, and nobody's seen anything like it. Nobody's seen anything that it really can barely be described. You can't describe it. October 7th was not just the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It was not just the worst terror attack since 9/11. It was an attack on humanity itself. It was a hideous, incredible cruelty. It was chilling savagery. It was demonic delight and the destruction of innocent life. On October 7th, it seemed as if the gates of hell had sprung open and unleashed their horrors onto the world, and that's exactly what happened. What a moment in time, what a moment in horrible history, horrible history. Today we mourn more than 1,200 innocent victims of the October 7th attacks, whose memory we honor with 1,200 beautiful individual candles, and we honor them with grace and with gratitude for their lives and for their families, what their families have gone through. And maybe we'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. To every family that lost a loved one, I know so many of them, on that terrible day, including several here tonight, we grieve with you, we stand with you, and we make you this sacred and sacred vow, very simple vow, a vow you've heard many times, and sometimes it's honored and sometimes it's not, but this will be honored. Never again. Never again. The monsters who perpetrated those murders also took over 250 hostages, men, women, and children, including 12 Americans. In so doing, they inflicted the most unthinkable torture, not only on their captives, but also on the families who were forced to live day after day in excruciating agony and pain, not knowing whether their loved ones were dead or alive. Can you think of anything worse? Tonight, we send our love to every innocent soul who remains in Hamas captivity. We just are not going to stand for it. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take it any longer. We pray that through the darkness they know that we have not forgotten them, that we have not forsaken them. We will never forsake them, and we will never abandon them. And with God's help, they will come safely home, and it will be soon. We hope it will be very soon. Very, very soon. And we hope they're safe. Nobody knows. I was talking to somebody today, and the family has no idea. They think their boy is safe. Beautiful boy, beautiful young guy, American. He went over there to enjoy and to pray, and they've never seen him again, but they think he's alive. And can you imagine that? Can you even imagine? Let me also say to all of the people of Israel who have endured a long year search of anger and slander and war, our hearts are united with yours. We are very united with yours. The bond between the United States and Israel is strong and enduring. And if and when they say, when I'm president, I don't say that. I never say that. If and when I'm president of the United States, it will once again be stronger and closer than it ever was before. We have to win this election. If we don't win this election, there's tremendous consequence for everything. You know, I say that November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think it will also be the most important day in the history of Israel, if you want to know the truth. I believe that. I think you believe that too. Thank you. Over the past year, there has been an effort by some to deny the horrors of October 7th, just as some unbelievably deny the Holocaust itself. And you have that, and you have people that actually say, oh, October 7th, it never happened. Where do these people come from? Where do they come from? And they don't believe it. They don't believe it. They want others to believe it. They don't believe it. That's why it's so important to remember and to state clearly for history what happened on that terrible day. The only way we can keep our vow is never again, and it really is to also say never, ever forget. We can never forget. The nightmare of that day still hangs. The horrible legacy of what's taken place, the survivors, the families of the dead, and Jews all over the world. Hamas raped, tortured, maimed, and murdered innocent civilians in the most barbaric ways imaginable. Nobody can believe what they saw, and it's there for those to see if you want to see it. It's a terrible thing. I've seen it. They paraglided into a music festival full of life and beauty. From the skies they came and massacred young people who came for joy and happiness and peace. They were loving young people, wonderful young people, beautiful people. One young woman whose friend had been killed was seen begging on her knees for her life. She was begging, please, please. Her last words were, don't kill me, please don't kill me, before the terrorists shot her dead in the face. Elsewhere, a child and an adult were bound together with metal wire. They were burned alive. A baby was shot through the heart while still in the mother's womb, ready to be born, and shot. Today, we reaffirm the entire world to hear there can be no acceptance, no excuse, and no understanding of this kind of evil. It's the evil like nobody has ever seen before. Nothing can justify it. Nothing can rationalize it. And any person who sympathizes with it, with these terrible atrocities, is a sickness in their soul and a darkness in their heart. And these are people that can never be our allies or our friends. Almost as shocking as October 7th itself is the outbreak of anti-Semitism that we have all seen in its wake. I never thought I was going to see this. Never, ever. This is so incredible to be witnessing. Whoever thought? We thought this was very, very rarefied, putrid air. We never thought we'd see it, and we certainly never thought we'd see it in this country. And a lot of that has to do with the leadership of this country. This attack, yeah, well, that's true. We need leadership. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's very sad to see. I never thought I'd see it. This attack should have rallied the entire world in support of the Jewish people and the Jewish homeland. Instead, an ancient scourge of anti-Jewish hatred. And this was something we thought was left to hundreds and thousands of years ago. I mean, this was something we never thought could happen. The anti-Jewish hatred has returned even here in America, in our streets, our media, and our college campuses, and within the ranks of the Democrat Party in particular. Not in the Republican Party, I will tell you that. It's not in the Republican Party. And I say that the Republican Party has not been infected by this horrible disease. And hopefully it won't be. It won't be as long as I'm in charge, I can tell you that. These endless candles, photos, and empty chairs remind us why it's so important that the toxic poison of anti-Semitism be condemned, confronted, and stopped. Anti-Semitic bigotry has no place in a civilized society. It has no place in our universities, and it has no place in the United States of America. No place. Over 2,500 survivors of the Holocaust living in Israel were directly impacted by the horrors of October 7th. Many were forced to flee their homes. They cannot believe it happened. Some even lost their lives. Actually, many lost their lives. One of them was Moshe Ridler. Moshe was escaped from a concentration camp at the age of 11, only to die at the hands of the same vile hate 8 decades later. Can you imagine? Can you imagine his thought process when he saw this happening? Can you even imagine it? Hamas terrorists murdered Moshe at 91 years old for the same reason the Nazis put him in a camp, simply because he was a Jew. The world cannot continue down this dangerous path. We must stop this perilous slide into conflict, hatred, and destruction. And we must really, honestly stop it now. It cannot go on because it's going to only get worse if it does. The October 7th attack would never have happened if I was president. I can tell you. The past few years have proven that weakness only begets violence and war. And you see that it's weakness, but it's also, there's a lot of hatred going around also. Not just weakness, it's hatred. There's a lot of hatred on a certain side. What is needed more than ever is a return of unwavering American leadership and unquestioned American strength. We were strong, we were powerful, we were respected like this country has not been respected in many, many decades. Just 4 years ago. That's what I intend to deliver as the 47th President of the United States. We're going to deliver. everything that we want. As you know, Hamas has now been severely degraded, and Hezbollah has recently been dealt very, very powerful, crippling blows. With strength and the right leadership, the dawn of a new, more harmonious Middle East is finally within our reach. It's finally within our reach. But you have no idea the role that the United States has to play in order to get that ball over the goal line. We have to get it into the end zone. And if it's not the United States, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We have to be able to get it done and get it done properly and get back to a wonderful, beautiful way of life. You have to be able to do it. You have to finish what you began, and you have to finish it quickly. So here is my commitment to you on the solemn date. I will not allow the Jewish state to be threatened with destruction. I will not allow another Holocaust of the Jewish people. I will not allow a jihad to be waged on America or our allies. And I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror, and it has to win it fast. No matter what happens, it has to go fast. Thank you. And I want to, while we're at this point, I want to thank Mr. Steve Witkoff, a great entrepreneur in New York and Florida and elsewhere, I think everywhere, frankly. But he's made a major contribution, so I just want you to know that. I think it's appropriate to bring that up. What do you think? And Steve is the only one that doesn't really care if I do, but he's been very generous. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it. With his wonderful, beautiful boy. Here at home, I will defend our American Jewish population. I will protect your communities, your schools, your places of worship, and your values. We will remove the jihadist sympathizers and Jew haters. We're going to remove the Jew haters who do nothing to help our country. They only want to destroy our country. And we will never let the horrors of October 7th be repeated here on American soil. We will not let that happen, and we will solve the problem that we have. If you look at what happened just 2 days ago in New York City, I couldn't believe it. I said, it's starting all over again. The level of violence was as bad as it was last summer. If we can achieve all of that, we can really make sure that those who perished on October 7th will not have died in vain. They cannot have died in vain. You cannot let that happen. With God's help, their sacrifice will have given way to a safer Jewish homeland, a stronger state of Israel, a more secure America, and at long last, we will have achieved the dream of some generations. We are going to make this, we are going to turn this, and you can never say a total positive because all of those people that have died, but we're going to turn this into something where they can be proud of what's happened. They can say, we sacrificed our lives for something very special. There has to be unity. There has to be peace. There has to be strength. We need so many qualities. We need every single quality. We're going to bring it all together, and we will have peace in the Middle East. We will have strength and resilience, and we will have a very powerful and strong Israel, and I will be with you all the way. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless the people of Israel. God bless America. Thank you very much. Energy through the roof because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And if you look at now, Israel, October 7th, that would have never happened. But if Bibi Netanyahu followed the plan of Biden, he didn't want him to do anything. And a bad thing happened today. You probably heard. Now, the press isn't covering it very much, which is just incredible. Possibly our Defense Department or somebody. Anyway, it was leaked. The entire military plan of Israel. The military plan. The plans they have at the highest level. It was leaked. Highly confidential information. It was leaked by our somebody. They have no idea who did it. Can you imagine you're You're fighting a war and you have your Americans, Carlos, can you imagine anything like that? Did you hear this? You know, they leaked all the information about the way that Israel's going to fight and how they're going to fight and where they're going to go. And somebody, who did that? Can you imagine somebody doing that? That's the enemy. I guess that maybe is the enemy from within, as I talk about. We have an enemy from within. They hate to talk about it. But could you imagine? Could you imagine? So we just can't stand for this incompetence anymore. We are an incompetent.
I've got Jake. Jake, with the next one. There's Jake right there.
Check, check. Mr. President, it's an honor.
Thank you.
My name is Jake Ayers. I'm the mayor for the city of Hogansville, a small city in Troup County, Georgia, just next door.
Is he a good mayor? Yes?
While you were president, you delivered a significant grant that greatly impacted our community. And I think I can speak on behalf of every small town in Georgia. We are very thankful for your support of rural Georgia and rural America. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
However, I think one of the most pressing things on a global scale is your support for Israel. So how do you plan to support and protect Israel and the Jewish community now when you become the next president?
Thank you very much. Good question. And it's so interesting, but evangelicals and so many people support Israel so much more. It's not just a Jewish people. It's so many Christians are so supportive of Israel. And, you know, they say, and I would agree with this 100%, nobody's done what I've done for Israel. We, as you know, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. We even built the embassy by moving the embassy. That became somewhat automatic. Golan Heights gave them jurisdiction, and we gave Golan Heights, which was a big thing. We did the Abraham Accords, which was a very, very big thing. They were trying to get it for 72 years or something, and I got it for them. We've done a lot, and the single biggest thing I did was, you want to know, is get out of the Iran nuclear deal. The Iran nuclear deal was a disaster. And unfortunately, Biden and Kamala, nobody knows her as Harris. Do you ever do? I talk about it all the time. You say Harris. Everyone says, who is that? The vice president. Can you believe she's the vice president? She came in last. He picked her. She came in last, and now she's running. You know, think of it just for a second, Mr. Mayor, because I'm going to get right back to Israel, because there was one other thing, and that was the Abraham Accords. That was one of the most incredible things of all. We would have had peace in the Middle East, and we still will. We'll fill that out. We'll get them all in. We have the 4, but we'll fill it out. But if you look at what's happened and what's happening with our country and what's happening, a lack of respect for the two of them, we can't have that any longer. We have to be respected. Think of it. We were energy independent 4 years ago. We had, I saw the new number, $1.84 a gallon gasoline, and now you have 3.5 and 4. And you had 5 for a while, and you had 6 and 7 even for a while. But a lot of things. So we're going to take care of Israel. We work with Israel. They say that in Israel, I could maybe run, if things didn't work out here, you could run for Prime Minister of Israel, and I get 97% of the vote. So, and of course I kid, because you know what happens when you do the little sarcasm and the kidding, they go, well, he said he's running for, you know. That's the fake news doing that. And that's a lot of fake news you have back there. That's very impressive. That's very impressive. So we're going to do a lot for Israel, and we're behind them. And the big thing, we want to have peace in the Middle East. We want to have Russia stop with Ukraine. We're going to get that done. That was another thing would have never happened. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had Russia attacking Ukraine. You wouldn't have had October 7th, which was Israel. And the horrible, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country was Afghanistan. The way, not that they pulled out, we were ready to pull, the way they pulled out, it was so bad. They moved the military out first. No, you moved the military out last. I think it was one of the most embarrassing. I think that's why actually Putin went into Ukraine. But we're going to take care of Israel, and they know that. Bibi called me yesterday, called me the day before. We have a very good relationship. And I have to say they've done... Fortunately, they didn't listen to Biden, because if they listened to Biden, they'd right now be waiting for a bomb to drop on them. And they did their own work. They did not listen. They couldn't listen because what he was asking. In fact, just the other day, they said to him, are you okay with what they're doing? Well, I don't want them to attack the nuclear, and I don't want them to attack the oil. I said, really? That's sort of the opposite. If you go and take the exact opposite for 40 years of Biden's foreign policy, you would be one of the greatest. Just take the opposite. You'd be one of the greatest in the history of foreign policy. So we're gonna work with them very closely. We're gonna work with all nations. We're not gonna have World War III. We're closer to World War III right now than we have been ever, maybe ever. And that will be a war like no other because the power of the weaponry, nuclear weapons, the power it's indescribable, and you don't even want to think about it. And it's mentioned all the time. You know, I never mention nuclear. I never we rebuilt our military. We rebuilt the military. We had to give, these people gave a lot of military to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. They have parades to show it. And those are very embarrassing moments for our country. But we're going to take good care of, frankly, we're going to take care of everything. We're going to straighten out the world a little bit. One thing, if I could, somebody that a lot of people respect a lot, Viktor Orban from Hungary. So he's the prime minister, and he made the statement. He said, when Trump comes back as president, everything's going to be perfect. And it was for 4 years. And I know exactly what he was talking
Amen.
about. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.